Welcome to Mailman or Murderer, the clue everyone missed by the Glitch Bureau. This book covers a quiet suburban street, 10:15 a.m. I arrived to find yellow police tape fluttering in the morning breeze. The victim, Marcy Hollis, opened her door for the mailman at 9. By 9:05, she was dead on the floor. Chapter 1, The Scene. The suburban street lay quiet, a deceptive calm under the morning sun. But the flutter of yellow police tape told another story. I stepped onto the scene, my senses sharp, ready to unravel the mystery surrounding Marcy Hollis's untimely death. Marcy had opened her door at 9 a.m., expecting nothing more than the routine delivery of mail. By 9:05, she lay lifeless, a bullet having pierced her morning paper with surgical precision. The neighbors, reliable witnesses in their own right, swore they saw a mailman approach her porch. Yet the Postal Service confirmed no delivery was scheduled, raising the first red flag. As I scanned the porch, my eyes caught the flipped welcome mat, a subtle sign of struggle or perhaps a hasty exit. Scattered envelopes lay like fallen leaves, but one stood out, a blank envelope, devoid of any postal markings. A prop, not mail, hinting at a sinister plan. Inside, Marcy's tea remained warm, untouched by time, suggesting she had invited her visitor in willingly. The blank envelope on her table carried a faint scent of gunpowder, a chilling clue to the orchestrated deception. My instincts whispered that the killer had worn a disguise, a theory bolstered by the photograph on the mantel. In the photo, Marcy stood beside a man, their smiles frozen in time. His gold signet ring caught my attention, a unique crest that matched the ring I found glinting between the porch slats. This was no stranger. It was her business partner, masquerading as a mailman to settle a deadly score. The pieces fell into place, like a letter perfectly delivered. The scene was set, and the mystery was mine to solve. The detective stepped out of their car, the crunch of gravel underfoot punctuating the stillness of the morning. The suburban street lay quiet, the kind of quiet that was unsettling in its normalcy. Yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze, a stark contrast to the neatly trimmed lawns and picket fences. This was a place where nothing should ever go wrong. Yet here they were, on the cusp of unraveling a mystery that would test every ounce of their expertise. As the detective approached the house, a uniformed officer greeted them, his expression a blend of professionalism and unease. "Detective," he nodded. "Marcy Hollis, found by a neighbor who heard a loud noise. Time of death around 9:05 a.m." The detective listened, their face a mask of calm detachment. Yet beneath this exterior, their mind was already at work, piecing together the fragments of information. The house stood silent, a witness to the chaos that had unfolded within. As the detective crossed the threshold, their eyes were immediately drawn to the flipped welcome mat. A small detail, yet significant. It spoke of a struggle, a hurried exit, something more than just an accidental disturbance. It was these details that the detective thrived on, the minutiae that others might overlook. Inside, the scene was one of disarray. Envelopes scattered across the floor, some torn, others crumpled. Among them, a blank envelope caught the detective's eye. No stamp, no address. It was an anomaly, a piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. The detective pocketed it, knowing its significance might only become clear later. As they moved through the house, the detective's mind was a whirl of possibilities. The flipped mat, the blank envelope, each detail was a thread to be pulled, leading to a tapestry of motives and opportunities. They pondered these clues, considering scenarios that could explain Marcy's untimely death. Was it a robbery gone wrong? A personal vendetta? Each possibility carried weight, yet none felt entirely right. The detective's methodical nature came to the fore as they documented the scene. Every piece of evidence was noted with precision, from the position of Marcy's body to the faint scent of gunpowder that lingered in the air. This was a puzzle, and each piece was crucial to forming the complete picture. Outside, the neighborhood remained deceptively tranquil. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, their faces a mix of curiosity and fear. The detective could sense their unease, the way the normalcy of their lives had been shattered by the events of the morning. It was a reminder of the impact crime had, not just on the victim, but on the community as a whole. As the detective stepped back outside, they took a moment to survey the street. The calm was deceptive, masking the sinister events that had occurred. This moment of reflection was a bridge, a pause before the investigation would deepen and the detective's instincts would be put to the test. The detective's attention returned to the scene, their mind already forming a plan of action. The clues were there, waiting to be uncovered. The flipped mat, the blank envelope, the scattered mail, all were pieces of a larger puzzle. The detective knew that the answers lay in the details, in the small things that others might overlook. The uniformed officer approached again, breaking the detective's reverie. "We've spoken to some neighbors," he said. "They mentioned seeing a mailman earlier, but the Postal Service has no record of a delivery here today." This was the first twist, the first indication that things were not as they seemed. The detective's instincts kicked in, suspecting that the mailman was a disguise, a ruse to gain entry to Marcy's home. It was a theory, but one that fit with the evidence at hand. As the detective considered this new information, their gaze fell on a photograph on the mantel. Marcy, smiling, stood next to a man wearing a distinct gold signet ring. The caption read, "Business Partners." This was another thread to be pulled, another piece of the puzzle that might lead to the truth. Minutes later, the detective found a clue that nearly kicked them in the teeth. A gold ring glinting between the porch slats, identical to the one in the photograph. It was a connection, a link between the so-called mailman and Marcy's murder. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture that was becoming increasingly clear. The detective's mind raced as they pieced together the connection between Marcy's partner and the murder. The blank envelope, the flipped mat, the gold ring, all pointed to a calculated plan, a murder staged to look random. The so-called mailman was no stranger. He was Marcy's partner, here to settle a score. As the detective stood on the porch, they felt a sense of clarity. The clues were there, waiting to be uncovered. The truth was within reach, and it was their job to bring it to light. This was the moment they lived for, the moment when the chaos of a crime scene gave way to the order of deduction and reasoning. The detective knew that the next steps were crucial. They would need to delve into the partner's background, uncover motives, and gather evidence. The investigation was just beginning, and there was much work to be done. But for now, they had a starting point, a direction in which to head. With a final glance at the house, the detective turned away, their mind already on the next steps. The quiet suburban street was returning to normalcy, but the detective knew that appearances could be deceiving. Beneath the surface, there were stories waiting to be told, mysteries waiting to be solved. As they walked back to their car, the detective felt a sense of purpose. This was their calling, their passion. To uncover the truth, to bring justice to those who had been wronged. It was a task that required patience, skill, and a keen eye for detail. But it was a task they were more than ready to undertake. The detective's journey was just beginning, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. But with each step, they drew closer to the truth, closer to unraveling the mystery that lay at the heart of Marcy Hollis's death. And as they drove away from the scene, they knew that they would not rest until justice was served. The morning sun cast a gentle glow over the suburban street, its usual tranquility now shattered by the flurry of activity surrounding Marcy Hollis's house. Stepping out of his car, the seasoned detective took a moment to absorb the scene. The stark contrast between the peaceful setting and the chaos of the crime scene was palpable. Police officers moved with purpose. Forensic teams meticulously combed the area, and curious onlookers gathered at a respectful distance, their whispers barely audible over the hum of activity. As the detective approached the house, the yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze, marking the boundary of the investigation. He paused at the threshold, his sharp eyes catching the flipped welcome mat, a seemingly trivial detail, yet significant in his eyes. This mat, along with the scattered envelopes, hinted at a hurried or unexpected encounter, sparking his curiosity. It was these small, overlooked details that often revealed the most about a scene. Inside, the detective was greeted by the lead forensic officer who provided a brief rundown of the preliminary findings. Marcy Hollis, a well-liked resident, lay lifeless on the floor, the victim of a sudden and violent act. The detective's gaze shifted to the blank envelope amidst the scattered mail, a peculiar anomaly that stood out. This envelope became a focal point in his mind, a potential key to unraveling the mystery. The detective's first impressions were crucial, setting the groundwork for the investigation. He methodically examined the scene, noting the small details: a broken vase, a half-opened letter, the faint scent of Marcy's perfume lingering in the air. Each element was meticulously catalogued in his mind, forming the basis of his initial hypothesis. These were not just random occurrences. Each had a story to tell, a piece of the puzzle to offer. As he moved through the house, the detective reflected on Marcy's life. Known for her warm demeanor and active community involvement, her death left a void in the neighborhood. Conversations with officers and neighbors revealed snippets of her character, painting a picture of a woman who seemed to have no enemies, yet met a violent end. This juxtaposition puzzled the detective, driving him to delve deeper into her life and relationships. The detective's methodical nature and ability to glean insights from seemingly mundane details were emphasized in this initial exploration. His first impressions were not just about the physical evidence, but also about understanding Marcy as a person, which added depth to the investigation. He knew that to solve this case, he had to look beyond the obvious, to consider the human elements at play. Stepping back outside, the detective observed the street, now bathed in the morning light. The shadows stretched long across the pavement, a reminder of the secrets lurking beneath the surface of this quiet neighborhood. His instincts told him that the answer lay not just in the physical evidence, but in understanding the complex web of relationships and motives that surrounded Marcy's life. As an illustration of his approach, the detective recalled a similar case from years past. A seemingly random act of violence had turned out to be deeply personal, the result of a long-standing grudge that had festered beneath the surface. The key to solving that case had been understanding the victim's relationships and uncovering the hidden tensions that had led to the crime. This experience reinforced his belief that the truth often lay in the nuances of human interaction. The detective's reflections were interrupted by the arrival of a neighbor, eager to share what they had witnessed. The neighbor recounted seeing a mailman in a blue uniform approach Marcy's porch, a detail that had already been noted by several others. However, the postal service had confirmed that no delivery was scheduled for Marcy's address that day. This discrepancy further fueled the detective's suspicion that the mailman was a disguise, a clever ruse to gain access to Marcy's home. Inside, Marcy's tea was still warm, a poignant reminder of how quickly life had been interrupted. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that Marcy had invited her killer in, likely believing them to be legitimate. On the table lay the opened blank envelope, a faint smell of gunpowder clinging to it. The detective's gut told him that this was no ordinary piece of mail. It was a prop, part of a carefully staged scene designed to mislead. His attention was drawn to a photograph on the mantel. Marcy with a smiling man, captioned "Business Partners." The man sported a distinct gold signet ring on his right hand. This image lingered in the detective's mind, a potential clue that could unravel the mystery. Minutes later, his instincts were validated when he found a gold ring glinting between the porch slats, dropped in the scuffle. The crest on the ring matched the one in the photograph, linking the man to the scene. This discovery shifted the detective's focus. The so-called mailman wasn't a stranger. It was Marcy's business partner, here to settle a score and make it look random. He had worn the postman uniform like a costume, fooling everyone but the detective. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, like a mailed letter hitting the bottom of a postbox. The detective's mind raced as he pieced together the connection between the partner and the murder. He began to delve into the partner's background, uncovering motives that might have driven him to kill. Tension rose as the detective gathered evidence linking the partner to the crime, each new discovery adding to the mounting case against him. Setting a trap to confront the partner, the detective orchestrated a meeting, his calm demeanor masking the anticipation of the confrontation to come. When he mentioned the ring, he caught a flicker of recognition and panic in the partner's eyes. This subtle reaction confirmed his guilt, the final piece of evidence needed to close the case. The confrontation was tense, the partner attempting to deny involvement, but the evidence was irrefutable. The detective presented the full picture of the crime, revealing the partner's motives tied to business disputes with Marcy. It was a story of betrayal and greed, the facade of a friendly partnership hiding a simmering conflict that had ultimately led to murder. With the partner's arrest, the case was brought to a close, bringing a sense of closure to the neighborhood. The detective reflected on the investigation, the lessons learned about the complexities of human nature, and the deceptive appearances that often mask deeper truths. The quiet suburban street returned to normalcy, but the detective remained vigilant, aware that beneath the surface lay a world of secrets and motives waiting to be uncovered. As he considered the impact of the case on his career and personal life, the detective felt a renewed sense of purpose. The investigation had been a reminder of the importance of first impressions, of looking beyond the obvious to uncover the hidden truths. It had also set the stage for future stories, hinting at new cases and challenges to come. In the end, what mattered most was not just solving the crime, but understanding the people involved, their motivations, and the intricate web of relationships that defined their lives. The morning air was crisp and still, the kind of silence that clung to the edges of a quiet suburban street. But today, it was punctuated by the fluttering of yellow police tape. I stepped out of my car, the detective's instinct kicking in as I surveyed the scene. It was 10:15 a.m., and the neighborhood was already buzzing with whispers and hushed conversations. The victim, Marcy Hollis, had opened her door to what she believed was the mailman at 9 a.m. By 9:05, she was dead, a bullet hole tearing through the morning's newspaper, as clean as a church floor on Monday. The scene was almost serene in its chaos. Neighbors stood clustered in small groups, their eyes wide with shock and curiosity. They swore they saw a mailman in a blue uniform approach Marcy's porch, yet the Postal Service had no record of a delivery scheduled for her address. Something was amiss, and it was my job to untangle the threads of this mystery. As I walked up to the porch, my eyes immediately caught the flipped welcome mat and the scattered envelopes on the ground. Among them lay one that stood out, a blank envelope with no stamp, no address, and no purpose other than to deceive. It was a prop, a part of the disguise. Whoever had delivered it wasn't here to deliver mail at all. Inside, the air was still warm with the scent of Marcy's tea, untouched and cooling on the table. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting she had invited her killer in, believing him to be legitimate. On the table lay the opened blank envelope, a faint smell of gunpowder clinging to its edges. My gut told me this was no random act of violence. It was staged, and the killer was in disguise. Scanning the room, my eyes landed on a photograph on the mantel. Marcy stood beside a smiling man, the caption reading, "Business Partners." The man wore a distinctive gold signet ring on his right hand, a detail that would soon become crucial. Just as I was about to leave the room, a glint caught my eye. Between the porch slats lay a gold ring, identical to the one in the photograph. It was a clue that nearly kicked me in the teeth. This wasn't a stranger. It was her partner, here to settle a score and make it look random. The pieces began to fall into place like a mailed letter hitting the bottom of a postbox. The so-called mailman had been a murderer in disguise, and the clue had been right at her doorstep all along. I knew I had to confront the partner, and as I did, I caught a flicker of recognition and panic in his eyes when I mentioned the ring. The case was closed, but the lesson was clear. Sometimes the most crucial clues are hidden in plain sight. With the initial shock of the crime scene behind me, I turned my attention to the investigation. The neighbors were eager to share what they had seen, each detail adding another layer to the story. They described the mailman with such conviction that it was hard to believe he wasn't real. Yet, the Postal Service's records were unyielding. No delivery was scheduled, no mailman was assigned to that route. This discrepancy was the first twist in a case that was quickly becoming more complex than it appeared. My instincts told me that the mailman was a disguise, a carefully constructed facade to mask the killer's true identity. It was a theory that needed evidence, and the photograph and ring provided just that. As I delved deeper into the investigation, the photograph of Marcy with her business partner became a focal point. The gold ring, with its distinctive crest, was a symbol of their connection. and its presence at the crime scene was a damning piece of evidence. It suggested a link between the partner and the murder, a connection that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. With each piece of evidence, the picture became clearer. The partner had motive, opportunity, and now a clear link to the crime. It was time to delve into his background, uncovering the motives that had driven him to such a drastic act. Business disputes with Marcy had escalated, tensions simmering beneath the surface until they boiled over into murder. The tension rose as I gathered the evidence needed to confront the partner. It was a delicate operation, one that required careful planning and precise execution. A trap was set, and when the time came, the confrontation was inevitable. In the dim light of his office, I laid out the evidence before him. The photograph, the ring, the blank envelope, all pieces of a puzzle that painted a damning picture. His reaction was telling, a flicker of recognition followed by a desperate attempt to deny involvement. But the evidence was irrefutable, and the truth was laid bare. The partner's motives were revealed, tied to business disputes and personal grievances with Marcy. It was a story of deception, a carefully orchestrated plan that had ultimately failed. As the detective, my role was to uncover the truth, to see through the lies and bring justice to those who had been wronged. With the case closed, the quiet suburban street returned to normalcy. The yellow police tape was removed, the whispers and hushed conversations faded into the background. But for me, the lessons of the case lingered. It was a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the deceptive facades people wear. As I reflected on the investigation, I considered the impact it had on my career and personal life. Each case was a learning experience, a chance to hone my skills and deepen my understanding of the human psyche. And as I prepared for the next challenge, I knew that the clues in plain sight would continue to guide me, a constant reminder of the truth hidden beneath the surface. The quiet street was once again a picture of suburban tranquility, but for me, the work was never truly done. There was always another case, another mystery to solve, and I was ready to face it with the knowledge and experience gained from this investigation. The complexities of human nature and justice were vast, but with each case, I was one step closer to understanding them fully. Chapter 2, The Investigation Begins. The morning air was crisp as I approached the first house on Marcy's street. The neighbors were eager to share what they knew, and their stories were consistent. A mailman in a blue uniform had visited Marcy just before her untimely death. Yet a call to the postal service revealed a startling twist. No deliveries were scheduled for that day. The uniform, it seemed, was a ruse. As I absorbed this revelation, my instincts sharpened. The mailman was a disguise, crafted to deceive. But why? And by whom? This was no random act. It was a calculated move. I needed to dig deeper, to peel back the layers of deception surrounding Marcy's demise. I retraced the steps leading to her door, noting the subtle signs that others might overlook. The flipped welcome mat and the scattered envelopes suggested a hurried departure. Among the chaos lay a blank envelope, untouched by postal markings. It was a prop, a piece of the puzzle that hinted at a sinister plot. My mind raced with possibilities. Could the man in the photograph with Marcy, her business partner, be involved? The gold ring in the picture matched one I found glinting between the porch slats. It was a connection too significant to ignore, a clue that pointed to betrayal rather than random violence. The evidence was mounting, and with each piece the tension grew. The mailman was no stranger. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and the truth was within reach. With determination, I set out to unmask the perpetrator, knowing that the answer lay in the details everyone else had missed. The morning air was crisp as I approached the line of yellow police tape, fluttering gently in the breeze. It was a stark contrast to the serenity usually found on this quiet suburban street. Today, however, that tranquility was shattered by the grim reality of a murder. Marcy Hollis, a well-liked resident, had been found dead in her home, and the circumstances surrounding her death were as perplexing as they were chilling. Neighbors claimed to have seen a mailman in a blue uniform approach Marcy's doorstep around 9 a.m. By 9:05, she was dead. The Postal Service, however, confirmed that no deliveries were scheduled for Marcy's address that day. This discrepancy was the first of many oddities that demanded my attention. As I crossed the threshold into Marcy's home, the scene was eerily undisturbed. A flipped welcome mat, scattered envelopes, and a blank envelope on her table hinted at a staged crime. The faint smell of gunpowder lingered in the air, a silent testament to the violence that had occurred. With these initial clues in mind, I turned my attention to the neighbors. They were the eyes and ears of the street, and their observations could prove invaluable in unraveling this mystery. Interviewing them would be crucial in piecing together the timeline and identifying potential suspects. Subchapter: The Neighborly Watch. One thing that becomes clear in any investigation is the importance of community observations. Neighbors often notice details that outsiders might overlook. As I began my interviews, I kept this in mind, knowing that even the smallest detail could be a linchpin in solving the case. The first neighbor I spoke to was Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who lived directly across from Marcy. She was known for her sharp eyes and keen memory, traits that had made her the unofficial neighborhood watch. As we sat on her porch, she recounted the events of the morning with remarkable clarity. "I saw the mailman walk up to Marcy's porch," she began, her voice steady. "He was in uniform, carrying a satchel. I thought nothing of it at first. It's not unusual to see him around this time." "Did you notice anything unusual about him?" I asked, probing for any inconsistencies. Mrs. Thompson paused, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Now that you mention it, he seemed a bit hurried. He didn't linger like he usually does. And there was something about his walk. It seemed different, almost like he was trying to disguise himself." Her observations were intriguing. The mailman's behavior was indeed odd, and her comment about his walk suggested a potential disguise. It was a lead worth exploring further. Subchapter: Piecing Together the Puzzle. Taking this further, I moved on to Mr. O'Neill, a retired schoolteacher who lived next door to Marcy. Known for his meticulous nature, he was often seen tending to his garden or reading on his porch. When I approached him, he was pruning his rose bushes, a task he seemed to find both therapeutic and fulfilling. "Mr. O'Neill, did you happen to see anything unusual this morning?" I inquired, hoping his attention to detail might offer fresh insights. He set down his shears and considered my question. "I did see the mailman, but something struck me as odd. The satchel he was carrying seemed fuller than usual, almost like it was packed with something other than mail." "Did you notice anything else?" I pressed, eager for more information. "Well, there was a moment when he looked around, almost as if he was checking to see if anyone was watching. It was brief, but it caught my attention." Mr. O'Neill's observations added another layer to the mystery. The mailman's behavior was becoming increasingly suspicious, and the contents of his satchel were now a point of interest. Was it possible that the satchel contained the weapon used in Marcy's murder? Subchapter: The Unexpected Witness. As I continued my interviews, I encountered a young woman named Lisa, who lived a few houses down. She was new to the neighborhood and had been out for a morning jog when the incident occurred. Her perspective as an outsider might offer a fresh angle on the events. "I saw the mailman too," she said, her voice tinged with slight apprehension. "But what struck me was his shoes. They weren't the standard issue. They looked more like dress shoes, which seemed odd for a mailman." Her observation was a breakthrough. The shoes were a small detail, but they were inconsistent with the mailman's uniform. This inconsistency suggested a disguise, reinforcing the theory that the mailman was not who he appeared to be. Each interview added a piece to the puzzle, and the picture that was emerging pointed to a carefully orchestrated deception. The so-called mailman was likely someone with a motive, someone who knew Marcy well enough to gain her trust and access her home without raising suspicion. Subchapter: The Turning Point. With the neighbors' accounts in mind, I returned to Marcy's home to re-examine the evidence. The photograph on the mantel caught my attention once more. Marcy stood beside a man, both smiling broadly. The caption read, "Business Partners," and the man wore a distinct gold signet ring on his right hand. This detail, combined with the ring I had found between the porch slats, suggested a connection that was too significant to ignore. Generally speaking, the critical element in any investigation is the ability to connect seemingly disparate pieces of evidence. In this case, the ring was a tangible link between Marcy and her killer. It was time to delve deeper into the background of her business partner. Subchapter: Unmasking the Mailman. As I dug into the partner's background, a motive began to surface. Financial disputes, disagreements over the direction of their business, and a recent falling out painted a picture of a relationship fraught with tension. The partner had both the motive and opportunity to commit the crime, and the mailman disguise was a clever ruse to throw off suspicion. Armed with this information, I needed to gather concrete evidence linking the partner to the crime. The effectiveness of this strategy was notable, as it allowed me to build a case that was both compelling and irrefutable. A plan began to form, a trap to confront the partner and elicit a confession. The key was to leverage the evidence I had collected, particularly the ring, which was a symbol of his guilt. Subchapter: The Confrontation. The confrontation was set to take place in a neutral location, away from the prying eyes of the neighborhood. As I presented the evidence, I watched the partner's reaction closely. The moment I mentioned the ring, a flicker of recognition and panic crossed his face, confirming my suspicions. "You wore the mailman's uniform, didn't you?" I challenged, my voice steady and confident. He hesitated, a moment of silence stretching between us. "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, but his denial was weak, undermined by the mounting evidence. The tension in the room was palpable as he realized the net was closing in. The truth was out, and there was no escaping it. Subchapter: The Truth Unveiled. With the partner's guilt confirmed, the full picture of the crime came into focus. His motives were rooted in greed and betrayal, a desire to eliminate Marcy and take control of their business. The deception had been intricate, but ultimately flawed, undone by the very details he had overlooked. Reflecting on the case, I was struck by the theme of deception that ran through it. The mailman disguise, the staged crime scene, and the false alibi all pointed to a carefully constructed facade. Yet it was the small details, the shoes, the ring, the satchel, that unraveled the truth. Subchapter: Resolution. With the partner arrested and the case closed, the neighborhood could begin to heal. The quiet suburban street returned to normalcy, its residents reassured by the swift resolution of the crime. For me, the case was a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the lengths to which some will go to conceal their true intentions. It reinforced the importance of vigilance and the need to look beyond the surface to uncover the truth. As I prepared to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Justice had been served, and Marcy's memory would be honored. Yet as a detective, I knew that the work was never truly done. There would always be new cases, new mysteries to solve, and new truths to uncover. Subchapter: New Beginnings. In the quiet aftermath of the investigation, I took a moment to reflect on the impact of the case on my career and personal life. It had been a challenging journey, but one that had reaffirmed my commitment to seeking justice. As I walked away from the street, a familiar sense of anticipation stirred within me. There was always another case waiting, another mystery to unravel. And as long as there were questions to be answered, I would be there, ready to step into the unknown and uncover the truth. In the end, the case of Marcy Hollis was a testament to the power of observation and the importance of looking beyond the obvious. It was a reminder that in the world of crime solving, the answers are often hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those with the courage to seek them out. As the morning sun cast long shadows down the quiet suburban street, the scene was anything but serene. Yellow police tape fluttered in the gentle breeze, cordoning off the area where Marcy Hollis had met her untimely end. I stepped out of my car, the gravel crunching underfoot, and took in the scene with a practiced eye. It was 10:15 a.m., and the neighborhood was already abuzz with whispered speculations and furtive glances. Marcy Hollis was known to be an amiable woman, the kind who made small talk with the postman and waved to neighbors from her porch. By all accounts, she had opened her door at 9 a.m. to a mailman in a blue uniform. 5 minutes later, she lay dead on her floor. The scene was chillingly meticulous, a neat hole through the morning newspaper, a bullet as precise as a surgeon's incision. As I crossed the threshold of her home, the details began to unravel before me. The welcome mat was flipped over, a subtle sign of struggle or haste. Envelopes were scattered across the porch, but one in particular caught my attention. It was starkly different, No stamp, no address, just blank. It was a prop, not mail, and its presence was as loud as a shout in the silence. Inside, the air was still, the only sound the faint ticking of a clock. Marcy's tea sat on the table, steam still curling upwards, suggesting she had only just taken a seat when interrupted. No sign of forced entry. She had let the killer in, believing him to be the mailman. On the table, the open blank envelope carried a faint smell of gunpowder, an ominous signature of what had transpired. My eyes roamed the room, landing on a photograph on the mantel. It showed Marcy with a man, both smiling, the caption reading, "Business Partners." The man wore a gold signet ring on his right hand, its crest distinct and memorable. As I turned to leave, a glint caught my eye, a gold ring lodged between the porch slats. It bore the same crest as the one in the photograph. The mailman was no stranger. He was Marcy's business partner, here under the guise of a postal worker to settle a score. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a letter forming a word, each word a sentence in the story of Marcy's demise. I needed to confront the partner, to see if the guilt in his eyes would confirm the suspicion in my heart. Later that day, I tracked down the partner, a man named Richard. His office was a sterile environment, the kind of place where business deals were made and alliances forged. As I laid out the evidence, the ring, the photograph, the blank envelope, his eyes flickered with recognition and then panic. The mask slipped for a brief moment before he composed himself, but it was enough. The truth was out, as clear as the blue sky above the suburban street. Richard tried to deny it at first, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying him. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but the words were hollow. The evidence was irrefutable, the motive clear. Business disputes had soured their partnership, and Richard had seen no other way out but to eliminate Marcy and make it look random. In the end, the truth was unveiled, not with a dramatic confession, but with a quiet resignation. Richard was arrested, the case closed, and the quiet street returned to its usual tranquility. But as I stood there, watching the last of the police cars drive away, I knew that the peace was fragile, the kind that could be shattered at any moment by the complexities of human nature and the pursuit of justice. This case had been a reminder of the deceptive simplicity of appearances. The mailman was not who he seemed, and the clues had been there all along, waiting for someone to see them for what they truly were. As I drove away, I reflected on the lessons learned, the intricacies of human motives, and the thin line between trust and betrayal. In the days that followed, the case lingered in my mind, a testament to the power of observation and the necessity of questioning the obvious. The quiet street had returned to normalcy, but I remained vigilant, knowing that in my line of work, new beginnings were just around the corner, each with its own mysteries to unravel and truths to uncover. As I sat in my office, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow across the room, I contemplated the impact of this case on my career and personal life. It had been a reminder of why I chose this path, the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of justice served. And as I looked at the stack of files on my desk, a new case caught my eye, its details intriguing and promising another journey into the heart of mystery. In this line of work, the stories never end, each one a chapter in the ongoing narrative of human behavior and the quest for truth. And as I reached for the file, I knew that the lessons of Marcy Hollis's case would guide me, a reminder that in the world of crime and deception, the truth is often hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look beyond the surface. The morning sun cast long shadows over the quiet suburban street where the detective stood, taking in the scene of Marcy Hollis's murder. The air was thick with tension, and the fluttering police tape seemed to whisper secrets yet to be uncovered. The neighborhood was alive with hushed conversations, the kind that only arise when something inexplicable disrupts the mundane. The detective's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, noting every detail. Instincts, honed over years of experience, told the detective that the truth was hidden just beneath the surface. The neighbors, gathered in clusters, offered a tapestry of stories, each thread adding complexity to the mystery. An elderly woman insisted she had seen a mailman at Marcy's door, while a young jogger swore there was no such person. These conflicting accounts set the detective's instincts on edge, suggesting something far more sinister than a simple delivery gone wrong. As the detective began interviewing the neighbors, the stories unfolded like a patchwork quilt, each piece revealing a different shade of the truth. The detective's mind raced through possibilities, each more troubling than the last. Could the mailman be a disguise? Was the killer among the neighbors, watching the investigation unfold with a smug sense of satisfaction? These questions lingered as the detective methodically pieced together the timeline, noting the incongruities in the neighbors' testimonies. A pivotal moment in the investigation came when the detective contacted the Postal Service, expecting to confirm the delivery schedule. Instead, the revelation that no delivery was scheduled for that day sent a chill down the detective's spine. This unexpected twist heightened the stakes and confirmed the detective's growing suspicion that the mailman was a facade. With this new information, the detective's instincts sharpened, and a sense of urgency propelled the investigation forward. Returning to the crime scene, the detective's eyes were drawn to the subtle details that might have been overlooked. The flipped welcome mat, the scattered envelopes, and a blank envelope that seemed out of place. Each clue was a piece of the puzzle, hinting at a carefully orchestrated deception. The detective's analytical mind began to connect these disparate elements, forming a theory that pointed to a deeper conspiracy. The realization that the mailman was likely a disguise used by someone close to Marcy added a layer of personal betrayal to the case, intensifying the emotional stakes. The photograph on the mantel, showing Marcy with a smiling man captioned "Business Partners," became a focal point of suspicion. The man wore a distinct gold signet ring on his right hand, a detail that would soon prove crucial. Minutes later, the detective found a clue that nearly kicked them in the teeth. A gold ring glinting between the porch slats, dropped in the scuffle. The crest on the ring matched the one in the photograph. The so-called mailman wasn't a stranger. It was Marcy's partner, here to settle a score and make it look random. He wore the postman uniform like a costume and fooled everyone. Everyone but the detective in the end. The pieces fell into place like a mailed letter hitting the bottom of a postbox. The detective confronted the partner, catching a flicker of recognition and panic in his eyes when the ring was mentioned. The case was closed. The mailman was a murderer in disguise, and the clue was right at her doorstep. As the subchapter concluded, the detective stood resolute, determination etched into every feature. The groundwork was laid for the next phase of the investigation, where the detective would delve deeper into Marcy's life and relationships, seeking the truth hidden in plain sight. The subchapter ended with a sense of anticipation, leaving readers eager to follow the detective's journey into the heart of the mystery, where instincts and suspicions would lead to revelations that could change everything. In the quiet that followed the partner's arrest, the detective reflected on the layers of deception that had shrouded the case. The important thing to remember was how easily appearances could be manipulated, how a familiar face could hide malevolent intentions. This case had been a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature, where trust could be a dangerous gamble. The detective's instincts had been the guiding force throughout the investigation. From the moment the first conflicting testimonies were heard, a gut feeling had whispered that something was amiss. This intuition, coupled with a meticulous approach to evidence, had been crucial in unearthing the truth. The detective knew that in the world of crime solving, instincts were not just a tool, they were a lifeline. As the detective prepared to delve deeper into Marcy's life, there was a renewed sense of purpose. The investigation was far from over. There were still questions to be answered, relationships to be scrutinized, and motives to be uncovered. The detective was determined to leave no stone unturned, to ensure that justice was served, not just for Marcy, but for the community that had been shaken by her untimely death. The detective's journey was a testament to the power of instincts and suspicions, and how they could unravel even the most tightly woven deceptions. The quiet suburban street, once disrupted by violence, would eventually return to normalcy. But for the detective, the case was a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, the potential for darkness always lurked. waiting to be uncovered by those with the courage and insight to see beyond appearances. And so, with a sense of anticipation and a commitment to uncovering the truth, the detective moved forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey into the heart of the mystery was far from over, and the detective's instincts would remain the guiding light in the pursuit of justice. Chapter 3: Clues and Deceptions. The photograph on the mantel caught my eye immediately. Marcy, with her radiant smile, stood next to a man whose presence felt both familiar and unsettling. It was the gold signet ring that drew me in, a piece identical to the one found at the crime scene, glinting between the porch slats like a silent witness. This ring was no ordinary accessory. It was a signature, a mark of identity that linked Marcy's partner directly to the scene of her untimely death. As I examined the photograph, the theme of deception became glaringly clear. Here was a partner who, under the guise of camaraderie, harbored motives dark enough to disguise himself as a mailman. This was a betrayal wrapped in the mundane, cloaked in the routine delivery of letters. The photograph was more than a memory. It was a clue, a piece of the puzzle that began to unravel the web of lies spun around Marcy's demise. The discovery of the ring was pivotal. It was not just an object, but a bridge connecting the seemingly disparate elements of the case. More often than not, the truth hides in plain sight, and this was no exception. The realization hit me with a force that was both exhilarating and sobering. Here was the evidence that would pierce through the veil of deceit and lead me closer to the truth. As I pieced together the story behind the photograph, the tension in the room was palpable. This was more than a murder investigation. It was a journey through the shadows of human motives and the masks we wear. The results can be impressive when the truth finally emerges, and I was determined to see it through to the end. The room was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. The detective stood in Marcy's living room, the air thick with the weight of unspoken secrets. The photograph on the mantel drew the detective's attention like a magnet, its presence both commanding and mysterious. It was a snapshot of Marcy, her smile serene, standing beside a man whose features were partially obscured by shadows. Yet it was the gold signet ring on his finger that gleamed unmistakably, identical to the one found at the crime scene. This small detail, often overlooked, now held the key to unraveling the mystery of Marcy's death. The detective's mind raced, an internal monologue unfolding as they pondered the significance of seemingly trivial details. In the world of investigation, it was these tiny fragments that often led to the truth. The photograph was more than just an image. It was a puzzle piece waiting to be fitted into the larger picture. The detective leaned in closer, scrutinizing the background for clues. The setting suggested a business environment, hinting at a professional relationship between Marcy and the man. This was no casual acquaintance. This was someone deeply entwined in Marcy's life, and potentially her death. Memories of previous interviews with Marcy's acquaintances flashed through the detective's mind. Bits of information, once fragmented and seemingly irrelevant, began to coalesce into a coherent narrative. A sense of urgency gripped the detective as they realized the man in the photograph was not just a passing figure in Marcy's life. He was a central character in the unfolding drama, his presence a harbinger of treachery and deceit. Just then, a colleague entered the room, breaking the detective's concentration. They carried additional information about Marcy's business dealings, and as the conversation unfolded, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Marcy had been embroiled in a contentious business negotiation, one fraught with tension and potential betrayal. The man in the photograph, her business partner, emerged as a prime suspect, his motives rooted in greed and betrayal. The detective's mind buzzed with activity, connecting dots between the photograph, the gold ring, and the earlier discovery of the blank envelope. It was now clear that the envelope was a deliberate misdirection, a calculated move to throw investigators off the scent. The detectives' analytical skills shone as they methodically reconstructed the timeline of events leading up to Marcy's murder. Each piece of evidence slid into place with mechanical precision, revealing a chilling narrative of deception and betrayal. The realization hit the detective with the force of a revelation. The man in the photograph was not just a shadowy figure. He was Marcy's business partner, a man who had so far managed to stay in the shadows. This discovery was pivotal, a turning point in the investigation that strengthened the detective's resolve. With this newfound clarity, the detective knew they were on the cusp of building a solid case against the partner. As the detective stood in the quiet room, they contemplated the nature of deception and the lengths to which people would go to hide their true intentions. The photograph, once a mere image, had transformed into a powerful symbol of the tangled web of lies and deceit that had ensnared Marcy. The detective felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to bring justice to Marcy by unmasking the true murderer. The journey of the detective was not just about solving a case. It was a path marked by growth and insight. Each discovery, each revelation added depth to the emotional stakes, underscoring themes of trust and betrayal. The detectives' resolve was unyielding, their determination a beacon guiding them through the murky waters of deception. This chapter not only advanced the plot, but also deepened the emotional resonance of the story. The photograph, once a simple artifact, had become a linchpin in the detective's quest for justice. As the detective prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the business partner, they knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The truth, once obscured by shadows, was now within reach, and the detective was prepared to fight for it with unwavering determination. In the closing moments of the chapter, the detective reflected on the complexities of human nature and the intricate dance of deception that had led to Marcy's untimely demise. The photograph, now a symbol of the truth, served as a reminder of the detective's mission, to peel back the layers of deceit and reveal the stark reality beneath. With the photograph as their guide, the detective stood ready to face the challenges ahead. The path to justice was fraught with obstacles, but the detective's resolve was unbreakable. As they prepared to confront the business partner, the detective knew that the truth was within their grasp, and they were determined to see justice served. The detective stood in Marcy Hollis's living room, the air rich with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with an undercurrent of tension. His gaze was drawn to a photograph on the mantelpiece, a candid shot capturing Marcy with a man, both caught mid-laughter, seemingly unaware of the camera. The man's hand rested casually on Marcy's shoulder, a gold signet ring gleaming conspicuously on his finger. The detective's heart skipped a beat as he recalled the identical ring found at the crime scene, its crest an unmistakable match. This moment marked the beginning of a meticulous examination as the detective scrutinized the photograph. He noted the casual intimacy between Marcy and the man, suggesting a relationship more profound than mere business partners. His mind raced, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. Could there be a romantic entanglement? A motive potent enough to drive someone to murder? As he pondered these questions, the detective's instincts sharpened. He delved into Marcy's business dealings, searching for any friction with her partner that the photograph might hint at. Each interview with Marcy's close friends and colleagues peeled back layers of deception and betrayal. The detective learned of a recent argument between Marcy and her partner, overheard by a neighbor, which added fuel to the fire of suspicion. The detective's investigation uncovered discrepancies in the partner's alibi. A witness placed the partner near Marcy's home around the time of her murder, contradicting his statement to the police. This revelation tightened the noose around the partner, yet the detective remained cautious, aware of the complexities of human motives. The emotional journey of this investigation was one of mounting tension and urgency. The detective, seasoned yet haunted by past cases, felt the pressure of time and justice. Each clue he uncovered was a step closer to the truth, but also a reminder of the stakes involved. The photograph and the gold ring became symbols of the tangled web of lies and deceit. This subchapter was crucial as it bridged the initial discovery of clues with the deeper investigation into the partner's involvement. It set the stage for the detective's confrontation with the partner, building suspense and anticipation. The seamless flow from discovery to investigation ensured the plot remained logical and compelling. The storytelling tone was maintained through vivid descriptions and the detective's introspective reflections. The reader was drawn into the detective's world, feeling his determination and the weight of the case. The detective's character was enriched by his resolve to see justice served. Despite the personal toll it took, the subchapter concluded with the detective holding the photograph, the weight of its implications heavy in his hands. He knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was resolute. The truth was within reach, and he was determined to grasp it, no matter the cost. As the detective continued his investigation, he revisited the crime scene, replaying the events in his mind. The quiet suburban street, now a site of tragedy, held secrets that needed unraveling. He recalled the flipped welcome mat, the scattered envelopes, and the blank envelope that had initially caught his attention. Each element was a piece of the puzzle, contributing to the larger picture he was trying to assemble. He interviewed the neighbors again, seeking any overlooked details. Their accounts of the mailman in a blue uniform walking up to Marcy's porch were consistent, yet the Postal Service's confirmation of no scheduled delivery that day nagged at him. The mailman was a disguise, a clever ruse to gain entry. But who would go to such lengths, and why? The detective returned to the photograph, his eyes drawn once more to the gold ring. It was a key piece of evidence, tying the partner to the crime scene. He needed more than just circumstantial evidence to build a solid case. He needed motive, opportunity, and undeniable proof of guilt. He began to explore the partner's background, uncovering a web of business disputes and personal grievances. Marcy's success had sparked envy and resentment, emotions that festered into something more sinister. The detective learned of financial struggles and a failing business venture, adding layers of complexity to the partner's motives. With each new piece of information, the detective's resolve strengthened. He knew he was on the right track, but he had to be thorough, leaving no stone unturned. He reviewed financial records, uncovering discrepancies that hinted at embezzlement and fraud. The partner's desperation was evident, painting a picture of a man cornered by his own misdeeds. As the detective pieced together the partner's involvement, he set a trap to confront him. The tension was palpable, the stakes high. The detective knew that a misstep could jeopardize the entire investigation. He needed to be precise, methodical, and unyielding in his pursuit of justice. The confrontation was inevitable, a culmination of the detective's efforts. He approached the partner with the evidence, watching for the telltale signs of guilt. The partner's reaction was telling, a flicker of recognition followed by panic. The detective pressed on, revealing the full extent of the evidence against him. The partner's attempts to deny involvement were futile, his defenses crumbling under the weight of the truth. The detective's persistence had paid off, the case coming to a close with the partner's arrest. Justice was served, but the emotional toll on the detective was palpable. Reflecting on the case, the detective considered the complexities of human nature and the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The quiet suburban street returned to normalcy, but the detective remained vigilant, aware that the world was full of hidden dangers. As he held the photograph one last time, the detective knew that his work was far from over. The case had left an indelible mark on him, a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of seeking the truth. He was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to continue his pursuit of justice. The detective's journey was far from over, each case a new chapter in his career. He understood the impact of his work, the lives he touched, and the justice he sought. The photograph and the gold ring were symbols of a case solved, but also of the ongoing struggle against deception and betrayal. As he prepared for the next chapter in his life, the detective knew that the lessons learned from this case would guide him. The truth was a powerful force, and he was committed to uncovering it, no matter the cost. The quiet suburban street had been a stage for tragedy, but it was also a testament to the detective's unwavering resolve. The detective's story was one of determination, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. Each case was a new beginning, a chance to make a difference in the world. The photograph and the gold ring were reminders of the past, but they also pointed to the future, a future where the truth would always prevail. The detectives sat in their dimly lit office, the air thick with the scent of old coffee and the faint rustle of papers. The walls were a tapestry of chaos, adorned with photographs, scribbled notes, and a large map marked with red pins. Each piece was a fragment of a puzzle waiting to be solved. The detective leaned back in their chair, eyes fixed on the photograph of Marcy and her business partner. The partner, a man with a distinctive gold signet ring, had become a central figure in the detective's thoughts. The ring was identical to one found at the crime scene, a detail that could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. The detective's mind raced, revisiting every interview, every conversation, and every fleeting glance exchanged with the partner. There was a growing suspicion, an instinct honed by years of experience, that the partner was more involved than he let on. As the detectives sifted through the evidence, their thoughts were punctuated by a series of flashbacks. Each memory was a piece of the puzzle, slowly revealing a picture of deception and betrayal. The detective recalled the partner's nervous laughter during their first meeting, the way his eyes darted around the room, avoiding direct contact. There was a slight tremor in his hands when Marcy's name was mentioned, a subtle cue that had been overlooked in the moment. These details, once dismissed as inconsequential, now formed a pattern that could not be ignored. The detective's mind was a whirlwind of connections, each thread leading back to the partner. The financial disputes between Marcy and her partner provided a motive, a reason for the crime that was both compelling and chilling. In a moment of clarity, a forgotten piece of information resurfaced. A conversation with a neighbor, mentioned in passing, now seemed pivotal. The neighbor had seen Marcy and her partner arguing heatedly just days before her murder. This revelation, combined with the physical evidence of the ring, solidified the detective's hypothesis. The partner was not just a suspect, he was the key to unraveling the entire case. The detective's determination was palpable, a tangible force that propelled them forward. The burden of responsibility weighed heavily, but there was a resolve to seek justice for Marcy, to untangle the web of lies and deceit that had ensnared her. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared their strategy, there was a moment of reflection on the nature of deception. Deception was an art, a skill that required precision and calculation. The partner had crafted a narrative, a facade that had fooled many, but the truth, as the detective knew, was often hidden beneath layers of lies and misdirection. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. As the detective prepared to confront the partner, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective reflected on the upcoming confrontation, the moment when the truth would be laid bare. It was a moment that required both finesse and fortitude, an opportunity to expose the lies and bring the partner's guilt to light. The detective's resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The narrative of the investigation had reached a crescendo, a pivotal point where the detective's instincts and evidence converged. The partner's guilt was no longer a question. It was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detective's experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was complete, a strategy that would unmask the murderer and reveal the truth. The partner's guilt was a certainty, a truth that would soon be exposed. The detective's resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of deception, the art of crafting a narrative that could fool even the most discerning observer. The partner had been a master of deception, a skilled manipulator who had woven a web of lies. But the detective's instincts had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of deceit to the heart of the truth. As the detective prepared for the confrontation, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The partner's guilt was no longer a question, it was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detective's experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was complete, a strategy that would unmask the murderer and reveal the truth. The partner's guilt was a certainty, a truth that would soon be exposed. The detective's resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of deception, the art of crafting a narrative that could fool even the most discerning observer. The partner had been a master of deception, a skilled manipulator who had woven a web of lies. But the detective's instincts had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of deceit to the heart of the truth. As the detective prepared for the confrontation, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The partner's guilt was no longer a question, it was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detective's experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detectives' determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detectives' preparation was complete, a strategy that would unmask the murderer and reveal the truth. The partner's guilt was a certainty, a truth that would soon be exposed. The detectives' resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The detectives' thoughts turned to the nature of deception, the art of crafting a narrative that could fool even the most discerning observer. The partner had been a master of deception, a skilled manipulator who had woven a web of lies. But the detectives' instincts had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of deceit to the heart of the truth. As the detective prepared for the confrontation, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The partner's guilt was no longer a question, it was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detective's experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was complete, a strategy that would unmask the murderer and reveal the truth. The partner's guilt was a certainty, a truth that would soon be exposed. The detective's resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of deception, the art of crafting a narrative that could fool even the most discerning observer. The partner had been a master of deception, a skilled manipulator who had woven a web of lies. But the detective's instincts had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of deceit to the heart of the truth. As the detective prepared for the confrontation, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The partner's guilt was no longer a question, it was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detectives' experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was complete, a strategy that would unmask the murderer and reveal the truth. The partner's guilt was a certainty, a truth that would soon be exposed. The detective's resolve was unwavering, a testament to their dedication and commitment to justice. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of deception, the art of crafting a narrative that could fool even the most discerning observer. The partner had been a master of deception, a skilled manipulator who had woven a web of lies. But the detective's instincts had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of deceit to the heart of the truth. As the detective prepared for the confrontation, there was a sense of anticipation, a tension that crackled in the air like a storm on the horizon. The pieces were falling into place, each clue a step closer to the truth. The detective's strategy was clear, a plan that would unmask the murderer and reveal the deception that had led to Marcy's untimely death. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. The detective's preparation was meticulous, a strategy that would leave no room for doubt or denial. The partner's guilt was no longer a question. It was a certainty, a truth that would soon be revealed. The detective's resolve was firm, a bridge to the impending confrontation that would bring justice to Marcy's memory. The detective's thoughts turned to the nature of justice, the delicate balance between truth and deception. The investigation was a journey, a path that required both intuition and insight. The detective's experience had been a guiding force, a compass that had led them through the labyrinth of lies to the heart of the truth. As the detective gathered their notes and prepared for the confrontation, there was a moment of introspection. The case had been a test, a challenge that had pushed the detective to their limits. But it had also been a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go to protect their secrets. The detective's resolve was a beacon, a light that guided them through the darkness of deception. The truth was within reach, a revelation that would bring justice to Marcy and closure to the case. The detective's determination was unyielding, a force that propelled them forward to the confrontation that would change everything. Chapter 4: Unmasking the Mailman. The detective sat quietly in the dimly lit office, papers strewn across the desk, each one a piece of the puzzle. The business partner's name, Harold, appeared in bold on a financial document linking him to Marcy's company. It was a connection that seemed innocent at first glance, but the detective knew better. What makes this work is the detective's keen eye for detail. Picking up on Harold's mounting debts and the recent heated disagreements with Marcy over the direction of their business, experience indicates that financial motives often drive desperate acts. The detective dug deeper, uncovering emails between Marcy and Harold that hinted at a partnership on the brink of collapse. Harold's increasingly erratic behavior and veiled threats painted a picture of a man on the edge. A key factor is the gold signet ring found at the scene, a silent witness to their final confrontation. Setting a trap required precision. The detective orchestrated a meeting under the pretense of discussing business matters. In a cafe bustling with morning chatter, Harold arrived, unaware of the web tightening around him. As the detective casually mentioned the ring, a flicker of panic betrayed Harold's calm demeanor. This technique offers value in revealing the truth through seemingly innocuous conversation. Tension hung in the air, thick as the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. The detective's determination was palpable, each word carefully chosen to draw Harold out. Take the example of the detective's subtle nod towards the cafe's security cameras, a reminder that every move was being watched. Harold's facade crumbled, the weight of his guilt too heavy to bear. The truth was close, and the detective was ready to unmask the mailman once and for all. The detective's office was a sanctuary of organized chaos, an environment where every piece of paper, every photograph, held potential secrets waiting to be uncovered. The air was thick with the weight of unsolved mysteries, the kind that kept the detective awake at night, piecing together the puzzle of Marcy Hollis's murder. As the morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the cluttered desk, the detective sat poised, ready to dig deeper into the enigma of Marcy's business partner. The partner, a man whose name was whispered more than spoken, had become the focal point of the investigation. Years of experience had sharpened the detective's instincts, and those instincts were now screaming that this man held the key to unraveling the mystery. The detective's eyes scanned the documents spread across the desk, each one a potential clue in the tapestry of deceit and betrayal that surrounded Marcy's death. The detective's meticulous nature was on full display as they sifted through financial records, legal documents, and business correspondence. Each piece of information was examined with care, revealing a complex web of financial transactions that hinted at a deeper, darker narrative. The detective's fingers traced the lines of text, their mind racing to connect the dots in a story of greed and ambition gone awry. As the detective delved into the partner's past, they uncovered a series of emails exchanged between Marcy and the partner. These emails were more than just business communications. They were a window into a partnership that had soured, marked by escalating tension and veiled threats. The detective's sharp mind picked up on the nuances of the language used, the subtle barbs and insinuations that spoke of a bitter fallout over a lucrative business deal. One email in particular caught the detective's attention. It was a terse exchange, the kind that left no room for misinterpretation. The partner had accused Marcy of undermining his efforts, of sabotaging a deal that could have been mutually beneficial. In response, Marcy had fired back, accusing him of deceit and betrayal. The detective could almost hear the venom in their words, the anger and resentment that had festered between them. As the detective pieced together the timeline of events, they began to see discrepancies in the partner's alibi. The partner had claimed to be out of town on the day of the murder, yet there were gaps in his story that couldn't be explained away. The detective's instincts told them that the partner had been lying, and the evidence was starting to back up those instincts. With each new discovery, the detective's resolve grew stronger. They had uncovered a hidden connection between the partner and a notorious criminal organization, a revelation that added layers of intrigue and danger to the investigation. The partner's ties to this organization hinted at a broader conspiracy, one that could have devastating consequences if left unchecked. The detective's emotional journey was an integral part of this investigation. Balancing professional duty with a personal sense of justice was no easy feat, and the detective often found themselves wrestling with their own conscience. The internal struggle added depth to their character, making them relatable to readers who appreciated complex, morally driven protagonists. As the detective delved deeper into the partner's past, they uncovered a fraudulent scheme orchestrated by the partner. This scheme was aimed at undermining Marcy's business empire, a revelation that not only intensified the suspense but also set the stage for the impending confrontation between the detective and the partner. The detective knew that confronting the partner was inevitable. They had to formulate a strategic plan, setting a trap that would unveil the truth and bring the partner to justice. The narrative built anticipation for this confrontation, leaving readers on the edge of their seats, eager to see how the detective's plan would unfold. In preparation for the confrontation, the detective reviewed the evidence they had gathered. The gold ring, the emails, the financial records, each piece was a crucial part of the puzzle. The detective's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one racing towards the inevitable showdown with the partner. As the detective prepared to confront the partner, they couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. The investigation had been a roller coaster of emotions, a test of their resolve and determination. But through it all, the detective had remained steadfast, driven by a desire to see justice served. The confrontation was set to take place in the partner's office, a sterile corporate environment that belied the tension simmering beneath the surface. The detective arrived early, taking a moment to gather their thoughts before stepping into the lion's den. They were ready, armed with the evidence that would expose the partner's lies and deceit. As the detective entered the office, they were greeted by the partner's cold, calculating gaze. The partner was a man who exuded confidence, but the detective could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The detective laid out the evidence, piece by piece, watching as the partner's composure began to crack. The emails, the financial records, the gold ring, all of it pointed to the partner's guilt. The partner tried to deny involvement, but the detective's persistence and attention to detail left no room for doubt. The confrontation was tense, a battle of wills between two determined individuals. The partner's attempts to deflect blame were met with the detective's unwavering resolve. In the end, it was the partner's own words that betrayed him, a slip of the tongue that sealed his fate. With the partner's guilt confirmed, the detective felt a sense of relief wash over them. The truth had been unveiled, and justice would be served. The partner's motives, tied to business disputes with Marcy, were laid bare for all to see. As the partner was led away in handcuffs, the detective took a moment to reflect on the case. It had been a journey of discovery, a testament to the power of perseverance and dedication. The detective knew that there would always be new cases, new mysteries to solve, but for now, they could take solace in the fact that they had brought a killer to justice. The quiet suburban street returned to normalcy, the yellow police tape a distant memory, but the detective remained vigilant, ever watchful for the next case that would test their skills and challenge their resolve. As they walked away from the scene, they couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they had made a difference. In the end, the case of Marcy Hollis was more than just a murder investigation. It was a reminder of the complexities of human nature, the lengths to which people would go for power and revenge. The detective knew that they would carry the lessons of this case with them, using them to guide their future investigations. As the detective prepared to move on to the next chapter of their career, they couldn't help but wonder what new mysteries awaited them. They knew that the world was full of secrets, each one waiting to be uncovered by those with the courage and determination to seek the truth. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, the detectives set out to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in their ability to navigate the murky waters of deception and betrayal. For in the end, it was the pursuit of justice that drove them forward, a calling that they would never abandon. In the quiet aftermath of tragedy, the detective found themselves once again standing before Marcy's suburban home. The street, typically serene, now bore the invisible scars of a violent act, whispering secrets to those who dared to listen. The detective, seasoned by years of unraveling the tangled webs of human deceit, knew that the answers lay hidden in the details, waiting to be unearthed by a keen eye and a relentless spirit. The morning sun cast long shadows across the lawn, as the detective crossed the threshold into the home that had become a crime scene. The air inside was thick with silence, punctuated only by the soft creak of floorboards underfoot. It was here, amidst the ordinary chaos of a life interrupted, that the detective began their meticulous search for evidence that would bring clarity to the murky waters of suspicion. Marcy's study was a testament to her life, a blend of personal and professional, where business documents mingled with personal mementos. The detective's gaze fell upon the desk, a formidable piece of furniture that seemed to guard its secrets jealously. With careful hands, they began to sift through the papers, each sheet a potential key to unlocking the mystery that surrounded Marcy's death. It was during this methodical examination that the detective's fingers brushed against something unusual, a hidden compartment cleverly disguised within the desk's structure. With a soft click, The compartment revealed its contents, a trove of documents that spoke volumes about the tumultuous relationship between Marcy and her business partner. The detective's eyes scanned the pages, absorbing the legal jargon and terse exchanges that painted a picture of a partnership fraught with tension. Financial disagreements and power struggles leaped from the pages, each conflict a potential motive for murder. But it was a handwritten note, tucked away among the documents, that truly captured the detective's attention. Dated just days before her death, Marcy's note was a revelation. It hinted at her intention to expose her partner's fraudulent activities, a move that could have catastrophic consequences for the partner's reputation and financial standing. This note, with its damning implications, added a new layer of complexity to the case, suggesting a motive rooted in desperation and fear. Armed with this new evidence, the detective sought out Marcy's accountant, a figure who had remained in the shadows until now. The accountant, initially hesitant, eventually opened up about the conversations they had shared with Marcy. She had confided in them about her suspicions, detailing the discrepancies she had uncovered in the business accounts. This confirmation was the validation the detective needed, solidifying the theory that Marcy's partner had much to lose if her findings were made public. The investigation now took the detective to the partner's office, a place that seemed to hum with the energy of its occupants' ambitions. Here, the detective moved with the stealth of a shadow, gathering evidence that would further incriminate the partner. It was on the partner's computer that the detective found a series of incriminating emails, messages that outlined a plan to impersonate a mailman, a disguise that had allowed the partner to slip past Marcy's defenses. The discovery of these emails was a pivotal moment in the investigation. They were the missing pieces that connected the partner directly to the crime, revealing a premeditated plan to murder Marcy under the guise of an innocent visit. The detective's heart pounded with the thrill of revelation, their mind racing with the possibilities that this new evidence presented. As the subchapter unfolded, the detective's determination and resourcefulness were on full display. Each piece of evidence was carefully examined and placed within the larger narrative, creating a tapestry of deceit that pointed unequivocally to the partner's guilt. The tension built steadily as the detective prepared to set a trap that would bring the partner to justice. This moment in the investigation was a turning point where the detective's relentless pursuit of truth and justice brought them closer to unmasking the true murderer. The emotional journey was palpable as the detective grappled with the weight of the evidence and the moral implications of their actions. The readers, drawn into the detective's world, felt the anticipation and urgency of the impending confrontation. The subchapter concluded with the detective poised to confront the partner, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown. This seamless transition ensured that the narrative flow remained uninterrupted, keeping readers engaged and invested in the unfolding mystery. The promise of justice for Marcy loomed on the horizon, a beacon of hope in the darkness of deceit and betrayal. The night air was thick with anticipation as the detective stepped onto the quiet suburban street. The chaos of the morning's discovery had long faded, leaving behind an eerie stillness that mirrored the detective's focused mind. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and the only sound was the distant hum of a late-night car, a reminder of life continuing beyond the confines of this crime scene. As the detective approached Marcy Hollis's house, the familiar sight of the flipped welcome mat and scattered envelopes greeted them. Each piece was a crucial part of the puzzle, pointing unmistakably to Marcy's business partner as the killer. The detective's eyes lingered on the blank envelope, the smell of gunpowder still faintly present in their memory. This was no ordinary delivery. It was a message, a calculated move in a deadly game. Determined to unmask the killer, the detective had devised a plan, a trap to catch the partner off guard. The strategy was simple, yet effective. Leverage connections within the police force to set up surveillance around the partner's home and business. The detective's instincts, honed over years of service, whispered that the partner's confidence would be their downfall. It was only a matter of time before they slipped up. As the clock ticked past midnight, the detective's phone buzzed with a message from a colleague stationed near the partner's residence. Unusual activity had been reported. The partner was seen leaving their house in a hurry, a suspicious package in tow. The detective's pulse quickened, the thrill of the chase igniting a fire within them. This could be the break they had been waiting for. Slipping into the shadows, the detective followed the partner discreetly through the suburban streets. Each step was calculated, each movement measured. The pursuit was tense, the detective's heart racing not from fear, but from the anticipation of bringing justice to Marcy Hollis. The streetlights flickered, casting doubt and suspicion with every turn. Yet, the detective's resolve remained unshaken, the weight of responsibility driving them forward. The partner's path led to a secluded park, a place where the detective had arranged for an undercover officer to pose as an accomplice. The detective watched from a distance, their breath held as the partner approached the officer, believing them to be an ally. The partner began to speak, revealing details of the plan and their motive, unaware of the trap closing around them. In that moment, the detective felt a mix of triumph and relief. The pieces of the puzzle had finally fallen into place. With a signal, the team moved in, apprehending the partner and shattering their facade. The detective stood in the park's shadows, reflecting on the importance of patience and the satisfaction of seeing justice served. The emotional journey from doubt to certainty was complete, leaving readers eager to see how the confrontation would unfold in the next chapter. This subchapter bridges the initial investigation with the impending confrontation, showcasing the detective's strategic mind and unwavering dedication to solving the case. It sets the stage for the emotional and narrative payoff in the following chapter, keeping readers engaged and invested in the story's resolution. In practice, the detective's plan was a testament to their experience and intuition. The decision to utilize surveillance was not made lightly. It was a calculated risk that paid off. Analysis reveals that patience and observation are often the deciding factors in solving complex cases. The detective's ability to remain calm under pressure and trust their instincts was crucial in setting the trap. From a different angle, the detective's pursuit through the suburban streets was more than just a physical chase. It was a mental game of cat and mouse. Each step was a test of their resolve, each shadow a reminder of the stakes at hand. The detective's ability to adapt to the situation and remain focused on the goal was a key element in their success. Here's an example of how the detective's experience came into play. During the pursuit, the detective noticed a small detail that others might have overlooked. A flicker of light from the partner's phone as they checked the time, a sign of their nervousness and haste. This observation, though seemingly insignificant, confirmed the detective's suspicion that the partner was on edge, likely aware of the walls closing in around them. The results can be impressive when experience and intuition are combined. The detective's ability to read the situation and anticipate the partner's moves was instrumental in setting the trap. This case serves as a reminder that sometimes the most effective strategies are those that rely on patience and observation rather than brute force. As the chapter draws to a close, the detective reflects on the journey from doubt to certainty. The satisfaction of seeing justice served is tempered by the knowledge that the work is never truly done. The quiet suburban street may return to normalcy, but the detective remains vigilant, ready to tackle the next challenge that comes their way. In conclusion, this subchapter highlights the detective's strategic mind and unwavering dedication to solving the case. It sets the stage for the emotional and narrative payoff in the following chapter, keeping readers engaged and invested in the story's resolution. The detective's journey from doubt to certainty is a testament to the power of patience and observation, qualities that are essential in the pursuit of justice. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. The air crackled with tension as Detective Collins stepped into the dimly lit office, where Marcy's business partner sat behind a mahogany desk, his fingers tapping nervously. Collins placed the gold signet ring on the table, the crest glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Recognize this?" he asked, his voice steady. A flicker of panic crossed the partner's eyes, quickly masked by a forced smile. "I've never seen it before," he stammered. But Collins noted the tremor in his voice. Interesting, Collins continued, leaning forward. This ring was found at the crime scene, and it matches the one in the photo with Marcy. The partner's facade cracked, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Collins methodically dismantled the partner's alibi, detailing how the supposed mailman was a clever disguise. You dressed as the mailman, didn't you? Delivered a bullet instead of a letter. Each word was a nail in the coffin of deceit. The partner's denials grew weaker, his composure unraveling like a loose thread. I had no choice, he finally admitted, desperation creeping into his voice. Marcy was going to ruin everything. Collins nodded, the truth laid bare. The confrontation had served its purpose, revealing the partner's guilt and motives rooted in business betrayal. The detective's persistence and keen observations had unraveled the mystery, providing a satisfying resolution to Marcy's tragic end. As Collins left the office, the weight of justice settled in. The quiet suburban street would soon return to normal, but the memory of the confrontation lingered, a reminder of the thin line between trust and treachery. In the dim light of early morning, the quiet suburban street seemed to hold its breath, anticipating the unraveling of secrets. The yellow police tape, fluttering in the gentle breeze, marked the boundary between the ordinary and the sinister. As I stepped onto the pavement, the scene unfolded before me like the opening act of a grim play. Marcy Hollis, a name that would soon become synonymous with mystery, lay dead on her living room floor, her life snuffed out within minutes of a seemingly innocuous encounter with a mailman. As a seasoned detective, I've learned to trust my instincts, to see beyond the obvious. The clues at the scene were subtle, yet telling. The flipped welcome mat and the scattered envelopes whispered of a struggle, of a moment when Marcy's world turned deadly. Among the debris, a peculiar envelope caught my eye. It was blank, devoid of any postal markings, a silent testament to the deception at play. The investigation began with the neighbors, their accounts weaving a tapestry of confusion and contradiction. They spoke of a mailman, clad in the familiar blue uniform, approaching Marcy's door. Yet the Postal Service records told a different story. No delivery was scheduled for that day. This discrepancy was the first thread I pulled, unraveling a tapestry of deceit. It was clear that the mailman was a disguise, a costume worn to mask the true intent. Inside Marcy's home, the scene was eerily serene. Her tea, still warm, suggested she had welcomed the visitor without suspicion. On the table, the opened blank envelope bore a faint smell of gunpowder, a chilling reminder of the violence that had unfolded. My gaze wandered to the mantel, where a photograph of Marcy with a man caught my attention. The caption read, "Business Partners," but it was the man's gold signet ring that piqued my curiosity. It matched the one I found glinting between the porch slats, a clue that nearly kicked me in the teeth. This was no random act of violence. It was personal. The so-called mailman was Marcy's business partner, a man who had donned a postal uniform to conceal his identity. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, each clue like a letter hitting the bottom of a postbox, confirming my suspicions. In practice, solving a case like this requires more than just following the evidence. It demands an understanding of human nature, of the motives that drive people to commit such acts. As I delved deeper into the partner's background, a picture of greed and betrayal emerged. Marcy and her partner had been embroiled in a business dispute, a simmering tension that had finally boiled over into murder. The confrontation was inevitable. Armed with the evidence, I approached the partner, watching for the telltale flicker of recognition in his eyes. It was there, a momentary lapse that confirmed his guilt. The gold ring, the blank envelope, the unscheduled delivery, all pieces of a puzzle that painted a damning picture. His attempts to deny involvement were futile, the weight of evidence too great to escape. Presenting the evidence in such cases is an art form. It's not just about listing facts, it's about weaving a narrative that compels belief. The blank envelope, the gold ring, the photograph on the mantel, each element was a chapter in the story of Marcy's murder. By presenting them with clarity and conviction, I was able to strip away the layers of deception, revealing the truth beneath. The partner's motives, once hidden, now lay bare. Greed, jealousy, and the desire for control had driven him to commit the ultimate betrayal. It was a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most mundane lives. In the end, justice was served, the partner arrested, and the quiet suburban street returned to its semblance of normalcy. Reflecting on the case, I couldn't help but consider the lessons learned. Deception can take many forms, but the truth has a way of emerging, often in the most unexpected ways. As a detective, my role is to see beyond the surface, to uncover the hidden motives and bring them to light. It's a responsibility I take seriously, knowing that each case is a step towards understanding the complexities of human nature. As the dust settled on Marcy's case, I found myself contemplating the future. Each investigation leaves its mark, shaping my career and personal life in ways both subtle and profound. The quiet street, once the backdrop for a tragic tale, now stood as a testament to the resilience of truth. And as I prepared to close the chapter on this case, I knew that new beginnings awaited, with new mysteries to unravel and new truths to uncover. In the world of detective work, the line between mailman and murderer can be as thin as a sheet of paper. But with each case, I grow more adept at reading between the lines, at seeing the clues everyone else missed. It's a journey that never truly ends, a pursuit of justice that continues with each new day. As the detective stood in the dimly lit room, the air thick with anticipation, he faced the man who had been Marcy Hollis's business partner. The partner sat across the table, his eyes darting nervously, betraying the calm demeanor he tried to project. The tension was palpable, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks, and the detective knew this was the pivotal point in the case. He began with a simple question, one that would unravel the truth if answered honestly or reveal guilt in its evasion. "Where were you yesterday morning at 9 a.m.?" the detective asked, his voice steady, yet carrying an undertone of authority. The partner hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "I was at home," he replied, his voice lacking conviction. The detective leaned forward, his eyes locked onto the partner's. "You see, that's interesting," he said, pulling out a photograph and placing it on the table. It was the same photograph he had seen on Marcy's mantel, showing her with the partner, both smiling, unaware of the dark turn their relationship would take. This ring, the detective pointed to the gold signet on the partner's finger in the photo, was found at the crime scene. The partner's eyes widened, and his hand instinctively moved to his pocket, where the ring should have been. But it wasn't there, of course. The detective watched as realization dawned on the partner's face, the mask of innocence slipping. "I must have dropped it there when I visited last week," the partner stammered, trying to regain his composure. The detective shook his head slightly, a small smile playing on his lips. "You see, the thing is, the ring was found between the porch slats, as if it had fallen during a struggle," he explained, his voice calm yet piercing. "And the neighbors? They saw a mailman enter Marcy's house yesterday morning, but the postal service confirmed no deliveries were scheduled. So, either you're moonlighting as a mailman or—" The partner's facade crumbled under the weight of the evidence. All right, he burst out, his voice cracking. "I was there, but I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Why don't you tell me what happened?" the detective prompted, leaning back in his chair, giving the partner space to confess. The partner's shoulders slumped as he began to speak, his voice now tinged with regret. "Marcy and we had business disagreements. She wanted to sell the company, and I couldn't let that happen. It was my life's work, too." The detective nodded, encouraging him to continue. "So you decided to confront her?" "Yes, but I didn't plan to hurt her," the partner insisted, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I wore the mailman's uniform so no one would recognize me. I just wanted to scare her, to make her see reason. But things got out of hand." The detective listened, piecing together the narrative that had led to Marcy's untimely death. It was a tale as old as time, ambition, desperation, and the tragic consequences of a moment's decision. "And the gun?" he asked, knowing this was the final piece of the puzzle. The partner's voice dropped to a whisper. "It was just supposed to be a threat. I didn't mean to pull the trigger." The room fell silent, the weight of the confession hanging heavy in the air. The detective stood, his expression a mix of empathy and resolve. "I believe you didn't mean for it to happen," he said softly. "But Marcy is dead, and justice must be served." As the partner was led away, the detective reflected on the case. It was a stark reminder of how easily life could be shattered by decisions made in the heat of the moment. Yet, it also underscored the importance of his role, to uncover the truth, no matter how deeply it was buried beneath layers of deception. Later, as the detective walked back through the quiet suburban street, he noticed how the neighborhood was slowly returning to its usual tranquility. Children played on the sidewalks, and the hum of lawnmowers filled the air. But beneath the surface, the echoes of Marcy's murder lingered, a reminder of the darkness that could lurk in even the most peaceful of places. Reflecting on the case, the detective considered the lessons learned. It was a testament to the power of observation and intuition, to never take things at face value. The mailman disguise, the blank envelope, the gold ring, all clues that had seemed inconsequential at first but had led to the unraveling of the truth. As he reached his car, the detective paused, taking one last look at the street. He knew that while this chapter had closed, there would always be another mystery waiting to be solved. And as long as there were questions to answer, he would be there, ready to uncover the truth. Driving away, the detective couldn't help but think about the complexities of human nature. How ambition and fear could drive people to the brink, leading to irreversible actions. It was a sobering thought, yet it fueled his determination to continue seeking justice, to bring light to the shadows where secrets hid. And so, as the detective left the suburban street behind, he carried with him the knowledge that every case, every clue, and every confession was a step towards understanding the intricate tapestry of human behavior. It was a journey he was committed to, one that required not just skill and intuition, but also empathy and a deep understanding of the human heart. The morning sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban street, where the fluttering yellow police tape seemed almost out of place against the backdrop of neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences. As I stepped out of my car, the scene before me was one of controlled chaos, a stark contrast to the serene neighborhood it had invaded. Officers moved with purpose, their radios crackling with updates, while curious neighbors peered from behind curtains, their faces a mix of apprehension and intrigue. Marcy Hollis had been the kind of neighbor everyone knew and liked, her home a hub of friendly gatherings and warm smiles. Yet today, her front porch was a crime scene, marked by the remnants of a violent act that had shattered the morning calm. The welcome mat lay askew, and envelopes once neatly bundled were scattered like fallen leaves. Among them, a peculiar envelope caught my eye, blank, with no stamp or address, just a silent witness to the morning's events. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of gunpowder, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed tea. Marcy's cup sat untouched on the table, steam still curling from its surface, a poignant reminder of the life abruptly halted. No signs of forced entry suggested she had opened her door willingly, trusting the familiar uniform of a mailman. But the postal service had already confirmed what my instincts screamed. No mail delivery was scheduled for her address that day. As I surveyed the room, my gaze landed on a photograph perched on the mantel. Marcy, radiant and smiling, stood beside a man with a distinctive gold signet ring on his right hand. The caption read, "Business Partners," hinting at a connection that would soon unravel the mystery surrounding her death. Minutes later, a glint of gold between the porch slats caught my attention. A ring, identical to the one in the photograph. It was a clue that nearly kicked me in the teeth, revealing that the so-called mailman was no stranger, but rather someone she trusted. The investigation took a turn as I delved into the background of Marcy's business partner. His name was Richard, a man known for his charm and business acumen, yet beneath the polished exterior lay motives darker than the shadows cast by the morning sun. The partnership had been strained, rumors of disputes over finances and control whispering through the corridors of their shared ventures. Richard had donned the mailman's uniform like a costume, using it to mask his true intentions, a calculated move to eliminate Marcy and make it appear random. Gathering evidence was a meticulous process, each piece a thread in the tapestry of deception woven by Richard. Interviews with neighbors revealed snippets of information, each adding to the picture I was forming. They described a mailman, yet their descriptions were vague, as if their minds were playing tricks. unable to reconcile the familiar with the sinister. The deciding factor was the ring, a tangible link to Richard that could not be dismissed as mere coincidence. With the pieces falling into place, I set a trap to confront Richard, knowing that his reaction would be the final confirmation needed to close the case. The meeting was arranged under the guise of discussing business matters, a setting familiar to him, yet charged with an undercurrent of tension. As I laid out the evidence, his demeanor shifted, the mask of confidence slipping to reveal the man beneath. His eyes flickered with recognition and panic when I mentioned the ring, a silent admission of guilt that spoke louder than words. The exchange was tense, each word a calculated move in the dance of accusation and denial. Richard attempted to refute the evidence, his voice steady yet laced with desperation. But the facts were irrefutable, the narrative of his guilt woven through the fabric of the investigation. The truth, like the bullet that had ended Marcy's life, was clean and undeniable. In the aftermath, the full picture of the crime emerged, revealing Richard's motives rooted in greed and betrayal. The business disputes with Marcy had escalated, her refusal to acquiesce to his demands driving him to a desperate act. It was a classic tale of deception, where the facade of partnership masked the simmering tensions that ultimately led to murder. As Richard was led away in handcuffs, the quiet suburban street began its slow return to normalcy. Yet for me, the case was more than just another entry in a career filled with mysteries. It was a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the deceptions that often lie beneath the surface. Each case leaves its mark, a lesson in the fragility of trust and the lengths to which some will go to preserve their illusions. The investigation had reached its conclusion, but my work was far from over. As I reflected on the events, the lessons learned were clear. Never take appearances at face value, and always trust your instincts. The world is full of masks, and part of my role is to see beyond them, to uncover the truth hidden in plain sight. With the case closed, I turned my attention to the future, the promise of new beginnings and the inevitable challenges they would bring. A hint of a new case loomed on the horizon, a tantalizing puzzle that beckoned with the promise of intrigue and discovery. Yet for now, I allowed myself a moment of quiet reflection, a pause in the relentless pursuit of justice and truth. The morning sun continued its ascent, casting its light on the street that had been the scene of such turmoil. As I walked away, the weight of the case lifted, leaving behind the clarity of a job well done and the anticipation of what lay ahead. The complexities of human nature and the pursuit of justice remained my constant companions, guiding me as I navigated the intricate dance of investigation and resolution. Chapter 6, The Truth Unveiled. The room was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of the clock, a stark contrast to the chaos of the crime scene just days before. As I stood before the gathered crowd, I felt the weight of their anticipation. It was time to unveil the truth. Marcy Hollis's death was no random act, I began, my voice steady. It was a meticulously planned murder, orchestrated by someone she trusted, her business partner. A collective gasp echoed through the room, the revelation striking like a bolt of lightning. Delving into the details, I explained how the partner's motive was rooted in a bitter business dispute. Marcy had discovered discrepancies in their accounts, threatening to expose him. Desperation led him to disguise himself as a mailman, exploiting the neighborhood's trust in their daily routines. The gold ring was his undoing, I continued. Dropped in haste, it bore the same crest as the one in the photograph with Marcy. It was the clue that connected him to the scene, a piece of evidence that spoke volumes. As I laid out the sequence of events, the room hung on every word. The partner's plan had been clever, but not foolproof. His attempt to mask the murder as a random act unraveled under scrutiny, revealing the layers of deception. Reflecting on the case, I emphasized the complexities of human nature. Deception can be a powerful tool, but it often leaves traces, I noted. In the end, justice prevails when we look beyond the surface. With the partner's arrest, the mystery found its resolution. Yet the case served as a reminder of the fragile trust we place in those around us, a trust that, once broken, can lead to unforeseen consequences. The detective sat in his dimly lit office, a solitary figure, surrounded by an avalanche of papers and photographs pinned to a corkboard. The air was thick with the quiet hum of his thoughts, each one a thread that, when woven together, would reveal the tapestry of motives behind Marcy Hollis's murder. The room was a symphony of shadows, the only light coming from the small desk lamp casting a pool of illumination over the detective's workspace. In the stillness, the detective's mind raced, connecting dots that others might have missed. His focus was on the business partner, a man with a veneer of respectability that barely concealed the desperation beneath. The detective recalled their earlier conversation, noting the subtle shifts in the partner's demeanor when questioned about his dealings with Marcy. It was as if the partner had been walking on a tightrope, balancing his lies with a practiced ease. Yet there was a flicker of something else, fear, perhaps, or the realization that his facade was cracking. The detective's internal monologue guided him through the labyrinth of evidence. He revisited every detail, every nuance of that fateful morning when Marcy opened her door to what she thought was a mailman. The disguise was clever, almost theatrical, but not enough to fool a seasoned detective. As he pieced together the events, the detective saw the partner's motive with newfound clarity. Marcy had discovered discrepancies in their business accounts, threatening to expose him and unravel the life he had built on lies. For the partner, it was not just about money, it was about survival. To put this in perspective, the partner's background was a tapestry of financial struggles. His business, once thriving, was now teetering on the brink of collapse. Marcy's discovery was a threat he couldn't afford. The motive was as clear as day. Desperation and greed had driven him to the edge. The mailman disguise was a calculated move, an attempt to deflect suspicion and stage the murder as a random act of violence. As the detective sifted through the evidence, he found himself returning to the crime scene in his mind. The flipped welcome mat, the scattered envelopes, and the blank one that held no message but spoke volumes. It was a symbol of the partner's attempt to erase his tracks, to make it seem as if he had never been there. But the detective knew better. He recalled the gold ring with the family crest, a detail that had nearly escaped notice. It was the partner's lineage, a mark of identity that tied him irrevocably to the crime. The detective's realization was profound, a moment of clarity that cut through the fog of deception. The partner's plan was unraveling, each thread pulled by the detective's relentless pursuit of the truth. The emotional journey was intense, as the detective grappled with the moral complexities of the case. He reflected on the theme of deception, questioning the lengths people would go to protect their interests and the tragic consequences that followed. Additionally, the narrative shifted from tension to introspection, allowing the detective to absorb the gravity of the partner's betrayal. It was a betrayal not just of Marcy, but of the trust and partnership they had built. The detective's resolve was unwavering, his commitment to justice reaffirmed as he prepared to confront the partner with irrefutable evidence. What makes this work is the detective's ability to see beyond the surface, to delve into the psychological depth of the partner's character. He understood the desperation that drove the partner to murder, yet he could not condone it. The critical element was the detective's intuition, his analytical skills that allowed him to piece together the puzzle with precision. The detective's preparation for the confrontation was meticulous. He gathered the evidence, each piece a testament to the partner's guilt. The gold ring, the financial records, the testimony of neighbors who had unwittingly witnessed the disguise, all were threads in the tapestry of truth the detective was weaving. To put this in perspective, the detective's role was not just to solve the case, but to understand the human element behind it. He reflected on the partner's actions, seeing them as a tragic result of fear and greed. Yet there was no room for sympathy and justice. The partner had crossed a line, and the detective was determined to hold him accountable. The subchapter concluded with the detective's resolve, his determination to see justice served. As he stepped into the next phase of the investigation, he carried with him a newfound understanding of the case's intricacies. The transition to the following subchapter was seamless, as the detective's determination propelled the narrative forward, setting the stage for the inevitable confrontation and the unraveling of the truth. In the end, the chapter provided depth to the story, offering readers a glimpse into the detective's mind and the complex web of motives that led to Marcy's untimely death. It was a reminder of the power of deception and the tragic consequences of desperation. The detective's journey was not just about solving a murder, but about understanding the human heart and the darkness that sometimes resides within it. The detectives sat in their dimly lit office, the air thick with the weight of unsolved mysteries. The room was a testament to the chaos of their thoughts. Papers strewn across the desk, photographs pinned haphazardly on a corkboard, and notes scrawled in hurried handwriting. The detective leaned back in their chair, eyes closed, replaying the sequence of events that led to Marcy Hollis's untimely death. It was a puzzle with pieces that seemed to fit nowhere, yet the detective knew that somewhere in the jumble lay the truth. The crime scene had been a tableau of confusion, a flipped welcome mat, scattered envelopes, and a blank one that seemed to mock the very notion of communication. These elements, seemingly random, were the breadcrumbs leading to a sinister plot. The detective opened their eyes, focusing on a photograph of Marcy with her business partner. It was a simple image, yet it held a secret that had eluded them until now. As the detective scrutinized the photograph once more, a detail emerged like a whisper from the shadows, a unique crest on the partner's ring, identical to the one found at the crime scene. This was the thread that would unravel the entire tapestry of deception. The partner was no mere associate. He was the architect of Marcy's demise. With this revelation, the detective began to reconstruct the timeline of the crime. It was a calculated plan, meticulously disguised as a random act of violence. The partner, driven by greed and a festering business dispute, had donned a mailman's uniform, a clever guise to gain Marcy's trust. The detective's mind raced, piecing together the partner's preparations. The acquisition of the uniform, the blank envelope meant to distract, and the precise timing to ensure Marcy's vulnerability. Flashbacks played out in the detective's mind, vivid scenes of the partner's meticulous planning. The partner, cloaked in the anonymity of a mailman, approached Marcy's door with a practiced ease. Marcy, unsuspecting, opened her door to what she believed was a routine delivery, only to be met with betrayal. The detective's heart ached at the thought of Marcy's final moments. She had been resilient, a woman of strength and integrity, brought down by the very person she trusted. This emotional reflection added layers to the narrative, highlighting the human cost of ambition and deceit. The detective felt a renewed sense of purpose, a drive to bring justice to Marcy's memory. As the detective prepared to confront the partner, they pondered the broader theme of deception woven through the case. It was a reminder of the complexities of human nature, where even the most seemingly trustworthy individuals could harbor dark intentions. This introspection not only enriched the detective's character, but also invited readers to reflect on the moral ambiguities inherent in the pursuit of justice. With irrefutable evidence in hand, the detectives set the stage for the final confrontation. They envisioned the moment, the partner's face when confronted with the truth, the flicker of recognition and panic in his eyes. It was a confrontation not just of guilt, but of the very essence of trust and betrayal. The narrative transitioned seamlessly to the next chapter, propelled by the detective's resolve and the anticipation of the climactic showdown. The pieces had fallen into place, transforming initial suspicions into a coherent narrative of guilt and motive. The detective's analytical prowess had uncovered the plan, and now justice awaited. The plan uncovered was a pivotal chapter, providing clarity and momentum to the story. It encapsulated the essence of the mystery genre, combining intellectual rigor with emotional depth, ensuring readers were engaged and invested in the resolution of the case. As the detective stepped out of the shadows and into the light of truth, the story moved forward, a testament to the enduring quest for justice. The office was dimly lit, the only sound the occasional rustle of papers as the detective sifted through the mountain of case files spread across their desk. The faint glow of the streetlight outside cast long shadows that danced across the room, creating an atmosphere thick with contemplation and introspection. Here, in this sanctuary of thought, the detective found solace in the solitude, a necessary companion in the pursuit of truth. As the detective leaned back in their chair, eyes scanning the familiar chaos of evidence, They couldn't help but reflect on the convoluted path the investigation had taken. It was a path fraught with deception, each twist and turn revealing the complex tapestry of human nature. The case of Marcy Hollis was more than a mere puzzle. It was a study in the art of deception, a testament to how easily appearances could be manipulated to mask the truth. The detective's mind wandered back to the beginning, to the quiet suburban street disrupted by the murder that had turned their world upside down. The initial scene was etched vividly in their memory. The yellow police tape fluttering in the breeze, the flipped welcome mat, and the scattered envelopes that hinted at a story untold. It was here that the seeds of doubt were first planted, leading the detective to question the reality presented before them. In the solitude of their office, the detective revisited key moments in the investigation. The initial interviews with the neighbors, who swore they saw a mailman in a blue uniform, played back in their mind like a film reel. Yet the Postal Service's confirmation that no delivery was scheduled added a layer of intrigue that couldn't be ignored. It was a subtle clue, one that hinted at the partners' duplicity and set the stage for the unraveling of the truth. The photograph on Marcy's mantel was another piece of the puzzle, a seemingly innocuous image that held the key to the mystery. In the picture, Marcy stood beside a man, her business partner, who wore a distinct gold signet ring. The detective recalled the moment they discovered a similar ring glinting between the porch slats, a clue that nearly kicked them in the teeth. It was a revelation that transformed the investigation, providing the link between the partner and the murder. As the detective pieced together the psychological layers of the case, they acknowledged the complexity of the human psyche and the motives that drove individuals to betray trust and commit such heinous acts. The partners' calculated decision to disguise the murder as a random act was a testament to the lengths people would go to protect their interests. It was a chilling realization, one that added a layer of psychological depth to the narrative. The detective's reflections were interrupted by a knock on the door, a welcome intrusion by a close colleague who had been a sounding board throughout the investigation. Their conversation was a dance of ideas, each thought building upon the last, as they dissected the intricacies of the case. The colleague's perspective offered an outsider's view, highlighting the detective's growth and ability to learn from past experiences. "You've come a long way with this one," the colleague remarked, leaning against the desk. "It's not just about solving the case, is it? It's about understanding the why behind it all." The detective nodded, appreciating the insight. "Exactly. It's about peeling back the layers to reveal the truth beneath. Every clue, every piece of evidence tells a story. It's up to us to listen." Their conversation continued, touching on the partner's background and the business disputes with Marcy that had escalated into a deadly confrontation. The detective considered the partners' motives, reflecting on how ambition and betrayal had intertwined to create a web of deception. It was a sobering thought, one that underscored the theme of the investigation. As the visit drew to a close, the detective found themselves standing by the window, looking out at the quiet suburban street that had returned to normalcy. The scene was a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded, a reminder of the duality of life and the hidden truths that lurked beneath the surface. In that moment of reflection, the detective pondered the case's impact on their career and personal life. It was a journey that had tested their resolve, challenging them to confront the darker aspects of human nature. Yet, it was also a journey of growth, one that had equipped them with the tools to tackle future challenges with renewed vigilance. The detective's thoughts turned to the future, to the cases that awaited them, and the lessons learned from Marcy Hollis's tragic story. It was a reminder that in the world of crime and deception, nothing was ever as it seemed. The truth was a fragile thing, easily obscured by the shadows of deceit. As the detective stood by the window, the weight of the case lifted, replaced by a sense of readiness and determination. They knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were prepared to face them head-on, armed with the knowledge and experience gained from this investigation. With a final glance at the quiet street, the detective turned away from the window, ready to embrace the new beginnings that awaited. The lessons of the past were a guiding light, illuminating the path forward and ensuring that the truth would always prevail, no matter the cost. Chapter 7, Resolution. The arrest of Marcy Hollis's partner feels like the final piece of a complex puzzle falling into place. Standing on the now quiet suburban street, the detective reflects on the investigation with a mix of satisfaction and introspection. It's a moment to breathe, yet the mind is restless, replaying the events that led to this resolution. Throughout the case, the detective learned that appearances are often deceiving. The partner, hiding behind the guise of a mailman, taught a valuable lesson. Trust, once broken, can lead to devastating consequences. This case was a reminder of the fragile line between trust and betrayal, a line the detective must navigate carefully in both professional and personal realms. As the police cars drive away, the neighborhood begins to reclaim its usual tranquility. Yet the detective remains vigilant, acutely aware that the complexities of human nature and justice are ever present. This case might be closed, but it serves as a stark reminder that every quiet street harbors its own mysteries. The detective considers the impact of this case on their career. It has been a journey of revelation and growth, reinforcing the importance of keen observation and intuition. Each clue, each false lead, has sharpened their skills, preparing them for whatever comes next. Looking down the street, the detective knows that new stories await, each with its own set of challenges and lessons. The resolution of this case is not an end but a stepping stone, a chapter in an ongoing narrative of justice and truth. The detective sat in the sterile confines of the police station, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. The walls, adorned with a collage of wanted posters and public service announcements, seemed to close in, amplifying the tension of the moment. He meticulously reviewed the evidence spread across the table, each piece a testament to the painstaking work that had brought him to this pivotal point. The arrest of Marcy Hollis's business partner was imminent, and every detail needed to be perfect to ensure justice was served. As he sifted through the evidence, the detective couldn't help but feel a complex mix of emotions. Relief washed over him at having unraveled the mystery that had gripped the quiet suburban community. Yet, there was an underlying sadness, a mourning for Marcy Hollis, whose life had been cut short by betrayal and greed. This case had been more than a professional challenge. It had been a personal journey, one that had left an indelible mark on his soul. The detective's thoughts wandered back to the day he first arrived at the crime scene. The image of the yellow police tape fluttering in the morning breeze was etched in his mind. Marcy had opened her door to a man she believed to be a mailman, only to be met with the cruel finality of a bullet. The neighborhood, once a picture of tranquility, had been thrown into chaos, its peace shattered by the deceptive guise of a postal worker. With a deep breath, the detective refocused on the task at hand. The evidence was irrefutable. The gold signet ring, the blank envelope, the photograph of Marcy with her partner, all threads in a tapestry of deceit that had now been meticulously unraveled. As he prepared for the confrontation, he knew the stakes were high. The partner's reaction would be crucial, a moment of truth that would either confirm the investigation's findings or unravel them entirely. The arrest unfolded with a tense precision. The detective presented the evidence to the partner, detailing the sequence of events with a clarity that left no room for doubt. As the partner listened, a mask of shock and denial slipped over his features. Yet, the weight of the evidence was undeniable. The gold ring, a symbol of their partnership, had been his undoing, a silent witness to his betrayal. The confrontation was charged with emotion. The partner's motives, driven by greed and the festering resentment of business disputes, were laid bare. In that moment, the detective felt a profound sense of closure. The case that had consumed his every waking moment was now resolved, the truth unveiled in all its stark reality. Justice, though not always straightforward, had been served. With the partner in custody, the detective took a moment to reflect. The resolution of the case was bittersweet, a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the sacrifices inherent in the pursuit of justice. He acknowledged the lessons learned, the personal growth that had come from navigating the murky waters of deception and truth. It was a moment of introspection, a contemplative pause that reinforced the themes of the investigation. As the detective left the police station, he found himself once again on the quiet suburban street where the story had begun. The neighborhood, now restored to its peaceful routine, seemed unchanged at first glance. Yet beneath the surface, there was an awareness of the fragility of that tranquility. The detective knew that while this chapter had closed, the world was full of new beginnings and challenges yet to come. He stood for a moment, observing the street, the houses standing in silent witness to the drama that had unfolded. The sun cast long shadows, a reminder that even in the light, darkness lurked. But the detective was ready, vigilant, and prepared for whatever lay ahead. The resolution of this case was not just an ending. It was a bridge to future stories, a testament to the enduring nature of justice and the relentless pursuit of truth. In the quiet of the suburban street, the detective found a sense of peace. The case of Marcy Hollis had been resolved, her story told with the dignity and respect it deserved. As he walked away, he carried with him the lessons of the investigation, a renewed commitment to his work, and an awareness of the complexities that lay ahead. The world was full of mysteries, but with each case, he grew stronger, more resolute in his quest for justice. As the detective prepared to leave the scene, he noticed a small group of neighbors gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and relief. The community had been shaken, but now, with the arrest made and the truth revealed, there was a palpable sense of closure. The detective nodded to them, a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey through the shadows of doubt and suspicion. As he drove away from the quiet street, the detective's mind drifted to the future. There would be more cases, more mysteries to solve, and more lives to touch. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, a recognition of the hard work and dedication that had brought justice to Marcy Hollis and peace to her community. The detective knew that the path ahead would not always be easy. The world was fraught with challenges, and the pursuit of truth was often a solitary endeavor. But he was undeterred, driven by a sense of purpose and a commitment to the values that had guided him through the darkest moments of the case. As the detective's car disappeared into the distance, the suburban street returned to its familiar routine. The sun set, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, a promise of new beginnings and the hope of a brighter tomorrow. The detective's journey was far from over, but for now, he was content, knowing that justice had been served and that the truth had prevailed. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting a warm glow over the suburban street that now lay in peaceful silence. The chaos that had once engulfed this quiet neighborhood was gone, leaving behind a serene calm that seemed almost surreal. At the edge of the now cleared crime scene, the detective stood alone, taking in the tranquility that belied the turmoil of the days past. The yellow police tape had been removed, and the street was once again a picture of suburban normalcy, with the distant hum of a lawnmower blending into the soft rustle of leaves. This was the moment the detective had been waiting for, a moment to reflect, to process the whirlwind of events that had unfolded. The case of Marcy Hollis's murder had been anything but straightforward, marked by a web of deception that had taken all of the detective's skill to untangle. As the detective stood there, the key revelations of the case played back like a film reel, each scene offering a lesson learned. First, there was the mailman, or rather, the man masquerading as one. His appearance had been so convincing that it almost fooled everyone. Almost. The detective had learned early in their career to trust their instincts, and this case was a testament to that lesson. The mailman's deceptive appearance was the first clue, a reminder that things are not always what they seem. The detective's mind drifted back to that initial interview with the neighbors, who had been so certain of what they saw. Yet, it was the absence of a scheduled delivery that had been the first red flag, setting the detective on a path of discovery that would reveal the truth. Then there was Marcy's business partner, whose hidden motives had been buried beneath layers of professional civility. The partner's arrest brought closure, but it also served as a stark reminder of the moral ambiguity that often accompanies justice. The detective had grappled with this before, but each case brought a new perspective. In this instance, the partner's desperation, driven by financial ruin and betrayal, had led to murder. The detective pondered the fine line between right and wrong, realizing that justice is rarely black and white. As the detective reflected on these revelations, the importance of seemingly insignificant details became clear. The flipped welcome mat and the blank envelope had been overlooked by many, but not by the detective. These small clues had been the threads that, when pulled, unraveled the entire case. It was a powerful reminder of the detective's creed: pay attention to the details. They often hold the key to the truth. Emotionally, the case had taken its toll. The detective had spent countless nights piecing together evidence, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice. Yet this dedication came at a cost. The detective acknowledged the personal sacrifices made: missed family gatherings, sleepless nights, and the constant weight of responsibility. It was a moment of introspection, prompting the detective to consider the need for balance and self-care in a profession that demands so much. Picture this situation. A detective, standing alone at the edge of a crime scene, reflecting not only on the case, but on their own journey. The lessons learned here were not just about solving a murder, but about understanding the complexities of human nature. The detective realized that each case was a chapter in their own story, each lesson a stepping stone to becoming not just a better detective, but a better person. As the detective's thoughts shifted towards the future, a sense of vigilance remained. The complexities of human nature and justice would persist, and the detective knew that their work was far from over. This contemplation set the stage for what lay ahead, subtly hinted at by the arrival of an enigmatic letter that had been slipped under the detective's office door earlier that day. It was a reminder that while one case had closed, another was already beginning to unfold. In this moment of introspection, the detective found a renewed sense of purpose. The journey was one of growth and resilience, and while the path was often fraught with challenges, it was also filled with moments of profound satisfaction. The detective's commitment to justice, despite its moral ambiguities, remained unwavering. The detective's reflection on the themes of deception, justice, and human nature provided a contemplative and emotionally resonant conclusion to the case. The quiet suburban street, once again at peace, was a testament to the detective's efforts. Yet, it also served as a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life, complexities and truths awaited discovery. As the chapter drew to a close, the detective took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the case lift slightly. The lessons learned would guide them in future investigations, a constant reminder of the importance of intuition, attention to detail, and the pursuit of truth. The detective turned away from the crime scene, ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and experience gained from the case of Marcy Hollis. In this quiet moment, the detective's journey continued, leaving readers with a sense of satisfaction and anticipation for the stories yet to be told. Through this introspective lens, lessons learned offered a thoughtful conclusion to the chapter resolution, ensuring a seamless transition into the next phase of the detective's journey. The quiet suburban street, once a backdrop to a chilling murder, now breathes a sigh of relief as life gradually resumes its familiar rhythm. The yellow police tape, which had cordoned off Marcy Hollis's home like a grim reminder of the tragedy, is finally removed. Neighbors who once huddled behind their curtains step cautiously into the sunlight, eager to reclaim their routines. This is the moment the detective, standing at the edge of the street, has been waiting for: a return to normalcy. The detective takes a slow walk down the street, their eyes absorbing the subtle changes in the neighborhood. The tension that once gripped the area begins to loosen its hold, replaced by a tentative calm. As they pass Marcy Hollis's house, now free from the constant buzz of police activity, the detective reflects on the case's impact. It's not just Marcy's family and friends who have been affected. The entire community has felt the ripple effects of the crime. The detective's thoughts drift to the nature of justice. How does one measure its impact? Is it in the relief of a solved case or the healing of a community? These questions linger as they consider the complexities of human motives and deception that this case has brought to light. Despite their years of experience, this investigation has been a profound learning experience, challenging their perceptions and reinforcing the delicate balance between instinct and evidence. Walking past familiar homes, the detective acknowledges their own vulnerabilities. There were moments of doubt, times when the path seemed obscured by shadows of uncertainty. Yet through it all, trusting their instincts proved crucial. This introspection is vital, highlighting the detective's evolution while staying true to their core principles of justice and truth. The narrative shifts as the detective arrives at Marcy's family home. The encounter is emotional, providing a sense of closure and healing. Marcy's family expresses their gratitude, sharing personal stories that paint a fuller picture of her life beyond the tragedy. These anecdotes bring Marcy to life, not as a victim, but as a vibrant personality whose presence is dearly missed. This interaction reinforces the detective's commitment to their work, reminding them of the profound impact their role has on the lives of others. As the detective leaves the family home, they encounter a young child playing on the sidewalk, a symbol of innocence and the neighborhood's gradual return to normalcy. This moment serves as a poignant reminder of the detective's responsibility to protect and serve the community, fueling their resolve to remain vigilant in the face of future challenges. Returning to their office, the detective sits quietly, reflecting on the case's lessons. The balance between personal life and professional duty comes into sharp focus, acknowledging the sacrifices made along the way. A subtle hint of a new case emerges, teasing potential future stories and leaving readers with a sense of anticipation. This chapter encapsulates the themes of reflection, growth, and the enduring complexities of justice. It provides a satisfying conclusion to the narrative arc, while setting the stage for the detective's ongoing journey, ensuring a seamless transition to the book's conclusion. Experience shows that even in the most routine-seeming cases, complexities and surprises lurk beneath the surface. The detective's journey through this investigation has been no exception. As they sit in their office, they consider the broader implications of their work. Beyond solving crimes, it's about restoring a sense of safety and trust in the community. This realization is both humbling and empowering, reinforcing the detective's dedication to their duty. As an illustration of the detective's growth, consider the way they approached the investigation. Initially, the clues seemed disparate, each piece of evidence a puzzle unto itself. Yet as the detective delved deeper, patterns began to emerge. The photograph of Marcy with her business partner, the gold ring with its distinctive crest, and the blank envelope, all these elements coalesced into a coherent narrative of betrayal and deceit. A key factor in the detective's success was their ability to see beyond the obvious. While the neighbors' accounts of a mailman seemed credible, the detective's instincts whispered otherwise. This skepticism, coupled with meticulous attention to detail, ultimately led to the unmasking of the true perpetrator. It's a testament to the detective's unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth, no matter how well hidden it might be. Beyond that, the detective's reflections on the case highlight the importance of adaptability in their line of work. Each case is unique, presenting its own set of challenges and requiring a tailored approach. The detective's ability to adapt, to pivot when necessary, is a crucial skill that has been honed through years of experience. The potential for future cases is significant, and the detective knows that their journey is far from over. Each new case is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to continue serving the community. As they prepare to tackle whatever comes next, the lessons learned from Marcy Hollis's case will undoubtedly inform their approach. In conclusion, a return to normalcy is not just about the resolution of a single case. It's about the broader themes of justice, community, and personal growth. The detective's journey serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there is always room for reflection and improvement. As the detective moves forward, they do so with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. Chapter 8, New Beginnings. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as I sat at my desk. The case file of Marcy Hollis closed but not forgotten. Her death had unraveled a tapestry of deceit that stretched beyond the quiet suburban street. As a detective, each case leaves an indelible mark, shaping the contours of my career and personal life. This one was no different. Reflecting on the investigation, I pondered the complexities of human nature. Marcy's partner, driven by greed and masked in deceit, had hidden in plain sight. It was a reminder that justice isn't always about catching the villain. It's about understanding the motives that drive people to darkness. It's a lesson that adds depth to the pursuit of truth. As I packed away the remnants of the case, a new envelope caught my eye. Unlike the blank one Marcy received, this was addressed to me, hinting at another mystery waiting to be unraveled. The familiar thrill of the unknown stirred within me. A whisper of new beginnings on the horizon. More often than not, each case is a reflection of life's unpredictable nature. The challenges are many, but they offer opportunities for growth and resilience. The journey with Marcy's case had been one of discovery, both of the crime and within myself. With a hopeful heart, I looked forward to the next chapter, knowing that the pursuit of justice is a path that continually evolves. As I left my office, the world outside was still waking up. The promise of new adventures lingered in the air, suggesting that while this story had ended, others were waiting to be told. The detectives sat in their quiet office, a sanctuary of sorts, where the walls were lined with the echoes of past victories and the whispering ghosts of unsolved mysteries. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows that danced across the cluttered desk, creating a tapestry of light and dark that mirrored the detective's own contemplative state. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and leather, a comforting aroma that spoke of countless hours spent piecing together the puzzles of human nature. As the detective opened the case file on Marcy Hollis's murder, they were struck by how this case, more than any other, had reshaped their understanding of justice and deception. The unraveling of Marcy's death had been a journey through the murky waters of human motives, where the line between right and wrong blurred with each new revelation. It was a case that had challenged their resolve and ingenuity, demanding a level of introspection that was both unsettling and enlightening. Revisiting the key moments of the investigation, the detective recalled the initial discovery of the crime scene. The suburban street, usually so quiet, had been a hive of activity, with yellow police tape fluttering in the morning breeze. The sight of Marcy's lifeless body, the neat hole through the newspaper, and the scattered envelopes on the porch were images that had seared themselves into the detective's memory. Each detail, each clue, had been a piece of a larger puzzle that slowly revealed itself with each step of the investigation. The detective's thoughts drifted to the first inklings of doubt regarding the mailman's identity. The neighbors' accounts had been convincing, yet something felt off. It was a gut instinct, owned over years of experience, that told the detective to dig deeper. This instinct had led them to the postal service, where the revelation that no delivery was scheduled that day had confirmed their suspicions. The mailman was a disguise, a clever ruse designed to mislead and deceive. Then there was the confrontation with Marcy's partner, a moment that had tested the detective's mettle and resolve. The discovery of the gold ring, identical to the one in the photograph on Marcy's mantel, had been the final piece of the puzzle. The partner's panic and eventual confession had brought the case to a close, yet it left the detective with a lingering sense of unease. The case had been solved, but the implications of human deception and the ease with which trust could be manipulated weighed heavily on their mind. As the detective reflected on these moments, they couldn't help but consider the impact of the case on their personal life. The long hours and emotional toll had strained relationships with friends and family who both grounded and challenged them. Conversations with loved ones had become a delicate balancing act, where the demands of the job often overshadowed personal commitments. Yet these interactions were a lifeline, offering support and perspective that was essential in maintaining a sense of self amidst the chaos. A pivotal moment came when the detective received a letter from a former mentor. The letter, filled with congratulations on solving the case and wisdom about the ever-evolving nature of justice, was a reminder of the path they had chosen. It served as a bridge between past experiences and future aspirations, reinforcing the detective's commitment to their vocation while acknowledging the personal sacrifices involved. The mentor's words were a balm, soothing the doubts and fears that had crept in during the investigation. Standing by the window, the detective gazed out at the quiet suburban street that had returned to its peaceful state. Yet, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, a subtle hint of new beginnings and the promise of future cases. The detective's thoughts turned to an enigmatic clue left unresolved, a thread that would weave into the next adventure. It was a reminder that the work was never truly done, that each case was a stepping stone to the next, each mystery a new opportunity to uncover the truth. As the subchapter drew to a close, the detective reaffirmed their dedication to uncovering the truth and serving justice despite the complexities and challenges ahead. This reflection encapsulated the detective's growth, a journey marked by both triumphs and trials. The case of Marcy Hollis had been a crucible, forging a deeper understanding of the human condition and the detective's own place within it. This chapter of the detective's life, though closed, was but a prelude to the stories yet to be written. The lessons learned, the insights gained, would serve as a foundation for the challenges to come. The detective's journey was far from over, and as they turned away from the window, a sense of hope and determination filled the room. The promise of new beginnings was a beacon, guiding them forward into the unknown. In the end, the impact of the case on the detective's career and life was profound. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for growth and change, and the enduring quest for justice. As readers, we are invited to follow along, to witness the unfolding of a story that is as much about the detective's inner journey as it is about the mysteries they seek to solve. The stage is set, the curtain drawn, and the next chapter awaits. The morning sunlight streamed through the slatted blinds of the detective's office, casting striped shadows across the cluttered desk. The room was a testament to the life and work of a seasoned investigator, walls adorned with commendations, shelves lined with case files, and a desk scattered with personal mementos and reminders of past cases. The air carried a faint scent of old leather and the sharper tang of coffee, the detective's ever-present companion. Leaning back in the creaky leather chair, the detective allowed a rare moment of reflection. The Marcy Hollis case had been a complex web of deception and misdirection, yet it had ultimately unraveled with a clarity that was both satisfying and sobering. Marcy had let her killer in, unaware that the mailman was merely a disguise, a mask worn by someone she trusted, a partner turned adversary. The detective had seen through the ruse, piecing together the clues with a methodical precision that had become second nature over the years. As the detective sifted through the remnants of the case, photos, notes, and that damning gold ring, a sense of closure mingled with the familiar anticipation of what might come next. The phone rang, slicing through the quiet like a sharp blade. It was a call from a trusted colleague, a voice that carried both urgency and familiarity. "Got something interesting for you," the colleague began, their tone hinting at the intrigue of a new puzzle. A series of postcards, sent to various residents in a nearby town. Each one has a cryptic message. The locals are spooked and the police are stumped. The detective felt a familiar spark ignite, a curiosity that had driven a career built on uncovering truths hidden beneath layers of deceit. Postcards, you say? Cryptic messages? Exactly. They're not just messages. When put together, they seem to point to something bigger, something potentially dangerous. The local force can't make heads or tails of it. Thought it might be right up your alley. The detective sat up, the chair creaking in protest. This was a new challenge, one that promised layers of mystery and the thrill of the unknown. The postcards were more than mere curiosities. They were a call to action, a summons to unravel a narrative not yet fully told. As the conversation continued, the detective's mind raced with possibilities. Each postcard, a piece of a larger puzzle, beckoned with the promise of discovery. The lessons from the Hollis case lingered in the detective's thoughts, trusting instincts, looking beyond the obvious, and recognizing that deceit often wore the most benign of faces. "I'll take a look," the detective promised, the decision made with a sense of purpose and a hint of eagerness. "Send over what you have." Hanging up, the detective glanced around the office once more. A photograph on the desk caught the eye. Marcy Hollis, smiling, unaware of the fate that awaited her. It was a stark reminder of the personal sacrifices inherent in the pursuit of justice. Each case left its mark, a subtle imprint on the soul of the one who sought answers. Yet, it was precisely this humanity that grounded the detective, a reminder that behind every case file and every evidence bag was a story worth telling, a truth worth uncovering. The detective rose from the chair, the decision to embrace this new challenge firm and resolute. Stepping out of the office, the detective was greeted by the crisp air of a new day, the world alive with possibilities. The narrative tone shifted to one of hope and anticipation, suggesting that while the journey ahead might be fraught with uncertainty, it was also rich with opportunity for growth and discovery. The detective's path was clear, marked by resilience and a perpetual quest for truth. This new case was not merely a continuation of the work, but an evolution, a chance to apply the hard-won lessons of past investigations to the mysteries that lay ahead. The postcards, with their cryptic allure, were just the beginning. As the detective walked into the bustling streets, the resolve was palpable. There was a story to uncover, a narrative to piece together, and a truth to reveal. The detective was ready. The journey ahead, both a professional challenge and a personal odyssey. The chapter concluded with the detective stepping into the world, ready to embrace the new challenge. The narrative tone was one of hope and anticipation, suggesting that while the journey ahead might be fraught with uncertainty, it was also filled with opportunities for growth and discovery. This transition set the stage for future stories, leaving readers eager to follow the detective on their next adventure. A hint of a new case was essential not only because it introduced the next mystery, but also because it encapsulated the detective's evolution. It underscored the theme of resilience and the perpetual quest for truth, ensuring that the story flowed seamlessly into new beginnings, while maintaining the storytelling tone that readers had come to expect. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the quiet suburban street where, just days ago, chaos reigned. The detective stood still, taking in the serene scene that seemed worlds apart from the turmoil that had unfolded. Gone were the police tape and the bustling activity, replaced by a peaceful calm that belied the gravity of what had occurred. This moment of tranquility served as a fitting metaphor for the detective's internal journey from confusion to clarity. As the detective paused to reflect, the weight of the case's impact on both career and personal life became apparent. A conversation with a close colleague had sparked this introspection. The colleague, having witnessed the detective's relentless pursuit of justice, expressed admiration for the tenacity and skill displayed in resolving the case. Yet, this acknowledgement also brought to the surface the detective's own doubts and fears, revealing the personal sacrifices made along the way. "You handled this one with incredible finesse," the colleague had said, their voice tinged with genuine respect. "But how are you holding up?" The question lingered, prompting a candid reflection on the vulnerabilities that come with the territory. The detective, usually so composed, found solace in admitting to moments of uncertainty and the toll that the pursuit of truth can exact. It was a rare glimpse into the human side of a figure often seen as unflappable, making the detective more relatable to readers who, too, grapple with their own struggles. With these thoughts swirling, the detective turned to deeper musings on justice and human nature. The case had been a stark reminder of the deceptive appearances that can mask true intentions. The detective pondered how easily trust can be manipulated, and how the truth, though sometimes obscured, ultimately prevails. This reflection was crucial, tying back to the book's overarching theme of deception and truth. The detective's reverie was interrupted by a subtle reminder of the case's resolution. A newspaper headline caught the eye: "Marcy Hollis's business partner arrested." It was a stark reminder of the culmination of efforts and the justice served. This headline served as a bridge between the resolution of the current case and the potential for future challenges, hinting at the ever-present nature of crime and the detective's role in its resolution. As the detective continued to walk through the neighborhood, subtle changes came into view. A new family was moving into a house down the street, their laughter and chatter bringing life back to the area. Children played on the sidewalks, their carefree energy a stark contrast to the somber events that had recently transpired. These observations symbolized the detective's own journey towards healing and resilience, suggesting that life, much like the neighborhood, would continue to move forward. Thoughts inevitably turned to the future, considering the impact of the case on career trajectory and personal relationships. The detective realized that each case, while demanding, offered invaluable lessons. This moment of reflection was pivotal, highlighting the detective's growth and the resilience built through adversity. It was a reminder that, despite the complexities of human nature, justice and truth have a way of prevailing. The narrative took a hopeful turn as the detective received a phone call about a mysterious disappearance in a nearby town. The familiar thrill of a new mystery sparked curiosity and reignited a passion for solving puzzles. This cliffhanger left readers eager for more adventures, while also providing a sense of continuity and anticipation for what lay ahead. Overall, this subchapter served as a deeply introspective journey, balancing reflection with the promise of new beginnings. It captured the emotional evolution of the detective, emphasizing growth and resilience. The storytelling tone remained engaging and hopeful, suggesting that despite the complexities of human nature, justice and truth will always find a way to prevail. As the detective prepared to embark on the next adventure, a profound sense of purpose and determination took hold. The lessons learned from the case were not just about solving crimes, but understanding the intricate dance of deception and truth. This understanding would be crucial in tackling future challenges, ensuring that the detective remained vigilant and ready to face whatever mysteries awaited. In the end, the quiet suburban street, with its newfound normalcy, was a testament to the resilience of both the community and the detective. It was a place where justice had been served, and where life, in all its complexity, continued to unfold. The detective, standing at the crossroads of past and future, was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that truth, though sometimes elusive, would always light the way.